Hey there, and welcome to episode number 105 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G, from Icons of Fright. Joining me as always is Elric Kane with a trophy.
What did you win?
I didn't win this, but I'm holding it to feel empowered. I was feeling a little tired.
You grabbed it. It's a Saturn Award.
Yeah, from
Beat up
Bekah Spider.
somebody for a Saturn Award.
Okay, so it's not yours.
No, but it's a future prediction. One day. Bekah Spider 3.
that
You
might
win
be-
Best Actress at the Saturn Awards.
Yes, one day I will win Best
One
Actress.
day, maybe next year, that will be a rondo. You never know.
You never know.
It could be. That's very shiny, though.
Also with us now with the trophy is Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
I have now won. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Best DVD Release.
Oh, okay,
I've
good.
won Best DVD Release. Elric still gets Best
Still
Actress.
proud.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. And I'm going to introduce our guest right off the bat because he might as well be a co-host.
I think he might as well.
And I can't believe we haven't brought him on in 100 some odd episodes. So I apologize, my dear friend, Spooky Dan Walker.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yes.
He was probably busy.
He's always
But
busy.
now I think
is.
I'm going to take over and interview you guys. That's
Yeah.
the format. Does everybody do that normally? Interview you guys, or
No.
do they just sit there and wait to be
I
asked?
don't
No.
think anyone's really turned the tables
no one's
yet.
really
The
interviewed yet.
greatest table turn was Rodman Flender making a joke about how there's not enough like Jewish-themed horror movies, and then we riffed for about 20 minutes about
Yes, that
Jewish
became like
theater.
the topic of the
and
show.
he's like, I was just kidding. I didn't expect you to. We're like, well, that's what you get us in the room.
Yeah.
We're gonna pull the deep cuts out.
Hell
so
yeah.
So Spooky's with us from the get go. Old friend of mine. We'll get into our history. He was over at Bloody Disgusting for quite a while, and a lot of people that are into Repo the Genetic Opera know him as kind of the champion. He was documenting a lot of footage when you guys went on tour with that, and he just directed a feature called Sleigh Bells, a Krampus film coming later this year. We hope.
No, we hope it will.
It
be.
will.
It's going to happen.
It will
Yes.
happen this year, maybe with your help. And we're going to get into all that, but obviously we're going to get into what we've seen first. I'm going to be super quick because I only saw one thing.
Oh, wow.
I've finally seen Evil Speak,
Oh,
which is one of
wow.
those films that has always eluded me.
I
From
love
there, I
that
still haven't
movie.
seen it.
Great VHS box cover. I remember that.
Yeah.
Clint Howard always kind of a welcome presence in a horror film.
Is
I
it a
guess.
computer that goes?
Yes.
It's a
Okay.
satanic Satan on a
Satan,
computer.
Satan on a computer.
Richard Mall, the spirit of Richard Mall in the beginning.
wow.
It's like he's like part of some Spanish cult, and they like get rid of him because he worships the Satan or something like that.
And then he reappears on Night Court. That's what happens when you get
Yeah,
killed by a
that-
cult.
House.
You go to Night Court.
That's why I could never understand, because I loved Night Court growing up as a kid,
Yeah.
and I loved him on that, but his
Loved
character
it.
in House actually fucking terrified me.
Yeah.
Like, I actually found that character to really frighten me. So he's
Oh, see,
obviously
I
a good
only
actor.
know him as Bull on Night
Me
Court.
too, and like
an
Bull-
Evil Speak for 5 seconds.
Bull
we'll
was
go
so like
House.
sympathetic.
And he's in Sleigh Bells.
Are
you serious?
Yeah.
Holy
Are you
smokes!
What a
serious?
tie-in.
Yeah,
That
look
is
at
a
that. I
crazy
don't think you
coincidence.
knew.
I didn't even know that.
This is a
What is he in
setup.
Sleigh Bells?
Robin
He
Hood were
plays
in
one
it.
of our cops.
Wow.
We shot up in Big Bear where he lives, so basically we knew like, oh, let's get him. He's here. So he came by and he was like, "You guys, you know, I should be Santa Claus." We're like, but we already cast Santa Claus. But we love you in the movie. So
That's funny.
we
Did he
have
play
met-
Tall Cop?
Actually,
No other type.
the guy who played our Krampus was his partner. So they're both like fucking 7 feet tall.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
so
I swear I didn't
That's a
know
pretty
that.
awesome tie-in.
However, there is a great, there's a little featurette where they interview a lot of the cast members, and he's one of them. And I could tell it's in Jim Coon's studio. Richard Mall's sitting there, and they're just like, so how did you, I'm sure the question was, how did you get this gig, or how did you decide to do the show? And it's just a matter of, I was like, yeah, they called me. And they said, "You want to do this gig for money next week?" And I said, "Yes, I'll do that." That's it. But like his delivery is just so brilliant.
What's
it's just
that
like they just asked
crazy?
me.
Is it Night Train to Terror? What's the one with God and the devil playing chess on the train?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Night Train to Terror? Yeah, Night Train to Terror, I think.
I
And he's
remember
in
the
the
cover of
first
that.
one of
It's-
that.
yeah.
It's on Vinegar Syndrome put out this year. It's one of the
That is
craziest
Night Train to
anthologies
Terror.
I've ever seen.
I gotta see that
It's
one.
remarkable. He's in the first story. I think it's like might even be his first role, and he has a huge beard.
Yeah.
And just looks insane. It's great.
is he
love
still
it.
bald?
No, I think he had big hair back then. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was a period
Yeah.
of big hair Richard Mall.
Yeah.
This could just be our Richard Mall.
Yeah, just
I think we got you.
That's our topic.
I
So-
used to absolutely love Evil Speak when I was a kid, but I always had to fast forward through the kitten scene.
Oh, no, it's a dog.
Oh,
it's
thank
a dog.
you. It's
Yeah,
a puppy.
yeah.
I fast forwarded through it, so all I knew was something small and fuzzy died.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before. I mean, it's got kind of that, and the funny thing is, like, because it's been so well regarded as this cult classic, and I've seen a lot of buzz around when initially I think Code Red put it out, and now Scream Factory put it out as well. So I've seen a lot of people talk about it. I've never seen it, so I'm watching it, and there's some good moments here and there. Like the opening is really cool with Richard Mall, and then. Dare I say I'm kind of a little on the bored side for a good chunk of it. I mean, there's the typical, Clint Howard's obviously like the lead character. That's
Do you hate horror, Rob?
No, wait.
Horror. I think you're against everyone in the horror community with that comment.
Let me finish this comment. But I understand the love because I'd say the last 10 minutes is some of the most bonkers shit I've ever seen in my life.
That's all you need, right? Like a good opening and some bonkers at the end, and people will be very forgiving in the middle.
But exactly. Yeah. I mean,
especially in the 80s.
That's the horror that stands out for us, because I'm sure people caught this on VHS or cable, but it's like that's what they remember. Right. The ending is so out there and crazy.
I remember it's the cover. I don't think I saw the film.
Yeah, you should check it out. I think it's a lot of fun, actually.
Really
is that
fun.
Scream Factory?
Yes. Yeah.
I own it. You may borrow.
Yeah, good stuff.
What an episode that was last week. There's revelations we can't even reveal.
Other ones, No, they were great. We love having those guys on.
Fun.
We thank you for the feedback. That's the only thing I saw. I just want to mention really quickly before we get to your picks is that I've been reading Mick Garris' new book, Salome. Is that how you say that? I think
so.
Salome.
Salome.
Let's go with Salome.
Mick, I'm sorry.
It sounds better than Salami.
I'm going to say Salome, but it's a little town in Arizona apparently. But I'm more than halfway through it. I mean, I literally just started it, and I've been burning through it. It is terrific. It is really, really well written. And it's kind of a murder mystery. I mean, it's written from the perspective of, a TV writer is married to kind of like a TV writer that's kind of past his prime is married to a very attractive actress that's also kind of past her prime. And in the opening of the book, she ends up dead. So it's kind of like, him trying to understand why. Like it's interesting because it opens with "I hated my wife until she got murdered." Like it's like how you think that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I think it's really fascinating in the way that the mystery is unfolding and just the way he wrote. He writes. I mean, a lot of people have said this. He's got a very perverse nature.
Yeah, a lot of people say it comes in as fiction, not as movies.
Yes,
which is interesting.
Very much
I have to read one of his books. I heard good things about the one that's about filmmaking.
Development Hell?
Yeah, I've heard always people like that.
Yeah,
he seems to be really busy all of a sudden, like getting a few back-to-back film gigs in different countries.
Just shooting something in Mexico.
Yeah,
right?
I think he has a Mexico film and a film in Canada. Or something.
He's in Toronto now.
Yeah,
somewhere.
It's good for him. We love Mick. He's a good guy, and much deserved. But
I'd like to see him adapt his own stuff. Like he's one of those filmmakers. I feel like towards the end of him doing King all the time, for me personally, getting kind of bored. Besides Sleepwalkers, which I really think connected well.
Yeah,
I feel like I kind of want to see you do your stuff and see that side that you were just talking about, that perverse side, because that's kind of what you want to see in a filmmaker.
He got it in his episode of Masters of Heart, Chocolate, which is Henry Thomas. Like that's kind of got that sensibility.
But that wasn't that. Did he write that one? Why did I think that was
I don't know if he wrote it, but I mean, it's got that perverse kind of style that's evident in his books.
Actually, he may have written that one.
Maybe.
I'm Googling it.
Looking up right now.
And
I like Spooky. He's already on it.
Yeah.
And what I like about this book, it's funny you say that because the opening page says written and directed by Mick Garris on the book, good as stuff. If you're about to read a movie.
Cool.
So yeah, it's really cool. You guys should check it out.
It's awesome.
What'd you see?
Okay, so some old stuff and some new stuff. I'll start with the old really quick. I saw Family Plot for the first time, the last Hitchcock film.
Oh, yeah.
And that was really cool because I'd always heard bad things from most people. Then I have this one friend, Oren, and it's like one of his favorite movies. I was like, really? I've never heard great things. So I was playing on 35.
I hear it's very funny.
Well, you look, the first half, I'm not going to lie to you. My eyes were closing. I had this image, because it was Hitchcock's last, I had this image of it like Weekend at Bernie's, that Hitchcock had died on the set and people propped him up and they kind of directed the movie with Hitchcock, because I was like literally
pretending to yell.
Yeah, pretending just go, "Ooh, that looks good." Of course, it sounded like the guy from Bad Taste, but that's okay. Anyway, halfway through it, my eyes are kind of itchy, and it's real pedantic, and just like it feels like the characters are interesting, but like I just felt like it's so routine. And then there's just this utterly bonkers, like probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a movie. In the middle of this movie, especially for a Hitchcock movie where it's so precise, this like driving, their brakes have been cut, and they're like trying to drive down a road, and it is so bonkers. Like at times her feet will be around his head. And it's Bruce Dern and Barbara Harris, and you're like, Bruce Dern playing bold, big comedy, like huge in a Hitchcock film. And I'm watching it going, is this a mistake? And I'm laughing, and then he has a line like that's going on for like 5 minutes with bad rear screen projection. They're driving, almost getting killed. Suddenly, a bunch of bikers come around, and he's going right at the bikers. He just goes, "I really got to get off this road," and everyone in the room fucking died. And I was like everyone laughed. And I'm like, I've never seen people laugh in a Hitchcock film like that ever. And I was like, okay. From that moment on, the movie became a whole different movie. Second half is so fun, so charming. Like Barbara Harris and Bruce Dern, particularly as a couple on screen, maybe my favorite couple I've ever seen. They're so charming, and like they're kind of like losers, and they're trying to William Devane and Karen Black are kind of the opposing couple, and it's an interesting movie. But the first half really isn't great, and then the second half is fucking classic comic Hitchcock.
Did you stay for Torn Curtain?
I didn't, because I wanted to try to get I'll tell you my whole point, where I tried to get it.
What happened?
Apparently, Elric had an adventure.
I actually did. I tried to fit in a lot because I had a day off and I knew we were going away, so I tried to see all the new films. I will finish with the old ones, then I'll go back. I watched a movie, kind of completing my desert viewing lately of Duel and things like that. I watched The Car for the first time, which should be just called Jaws as a car.
It's amazing. I love it.
It's a really cool movie. It's all set in Utah about a black kind of, it looks like a small version of a limo Cadillac, basically menacing a town. You never see the driver. It's some sort of Mormon religious thing. I'm just guessing. I'm going to take a leap, shot in the dark.
I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember that.
It's a stab, isn't it?
But it does have James Brolin, very attractive, good looking, back in the day, big mustache, James Brolin.
Ronnie Cox.
Yeah, and
I was
The Real
having
Housewives.
a conversation with somebody this weekend on men who are totally sexier with mustaches. I think Josh Brolin is one of them.
James. Well, this is his dad, James.
Oh, sorry, James Brolin.
Yeah, they probably both qualify.
Both
No, I think
men.
what it comes down to, if you're a hot dude, you can probably pull off a mustache for the most part.
I'm not a hot dude, but Bekah thinks I look better
I like
fuzzy.
his stash.
Yeah,
I say he's better fuzzy.
Fuzzy.
Anyway, dim the lights. Spooky, it's gonna get weird.
Is there like where we can vote on Rob's mustache and beard?
Okay.
Fuzzy,
Oh, we can
non-fuzzy?
set that up on
Yes.
Facebook.
I guess we
Fuzzy,
should.
non-fuzzy.
If we even get 2 replies, that's a success.
It'll be from this room.
The little
I'm
girls in
voting
it, though, from James Brolin, are the 2 ladies from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. One who got killed in Escape from Assault on Precinct.
Oh, okay.
When she was little, she was the ice cream girl.
She was the ice cream girl.
And her younger sister, the little kids. No, this is a really fun movie. I'd highly recommend. It's quite hard to find still. It's on Netflix, on DVD, but any other versions of it seem difficult to track down.
There's like an Arrow Blu-ray, but
there is a scene. Every movie, the ending's pretty amazing, but there's one scene in this movie might be top 5 kills of all time.
What?
Fucking woman on a phone in her house at night, and you see a window in the background of her. One take, and you just see lights come closer and closer, and the fucking car jumps through the window, kills her, and jumps through the other side of the car, and you literally go, because it's executed in one shot. I've never seen anything fucking like it. I would watch this movie just to fast forward to that scene and go, holy shit.
Wow.
It's amazing. It just as a setup gag, it was fucking awesome. But it's such a weird movie because they never give you any insight.
Are you going for a cursing record tonight?
I think he is.
This
He
is the
fucking
most
is.
ass
He's going for it.
any episode ever.
He's on vacation.
I'm on
He has
vacation.
Bermuda shorts on right
Exactly, I'm
now.
wearing shorts.
He's on
He's
vacation.
ready to get out of
But
here.
it's they never give any insight as to what the terror of this film is. There's not even an ambiguous like it could be the devil. It's
Oh,
just
you don't
like
even
it's just,
find out at
just
the
this,
end?
no, it's just like it explodes into a big thing of fire, and maybe there's something satanic about it. But it's a cool movie. An amazing. You were just talking about an '80s. Some people like classic Graduation Day.
Oh, dying to see that.
Does that hold up?
Holy hell!
I haven't seen it in 100 years.
Let me finish my sentence. No. We could base this turkey for Thanksgiving because it is one of the dullest, most overbaked films I have ever. No, really, this was an absolute. You know how you're talking about being a little bored in your film from start to end. Besides some editing flourishes that they're trying to be like Nick Rogue, quick, basically cutting elliptically back and forth. It is like total Dullsville.
I was waiting because you looked really excited for a second, and I was like, I don't remember liking this film at all.
It's on Blu-ray, which is good, but it doesn't. You're watching and go, why is this on Blu-ray?
I think that's one that Rob said it looked way too good for what it is, or somebody said that.
Look, all these kind of films will have fans because it's how when you saw it that you remember that. If you saw that say before Friday 13th, you're going to go, oh, I remember that first film. But it's just it has nothing about it that really hooked me.
I do remember when it released to Blu-ray that a lot of people were really, really excited about it. So I'm sure that it's got some fans out there.
I just think everyone's collecting all their memories. We want want them all out. We want every film we ever saw that's from the 80s. And I think that's fine, but they're not all going to be equally entertaining. I mean, they just can't be.
They can't all be Evil Speak.
Yeah, they can't all be Myriad Prom Night 2. But that's an entertaining movie. Yeah. You know. But anyway, so that one I will definitely put a big pass on for me. Okay, and then the two new films. I'll start with Insidious 3.
Oh, yes.
3. And I'll go spoiler free. Yeah. I saw it alone, just snuck in the middle of the day. It has, a couple of the best jolt scares that have gotten me in years. One, especially early on, where I actually not just went back into my chair, but I also said, "Oh God." To myself out loud, like in a movie theater.
I bet there was like a set of 14-year-old girls next to him laughing at him.
Yeah. No, they were. But so it has a really good setup of mood. That's the one thing I think at the start, the first like 25 minutes, I was like, oh, there's especially, I'll just say Waving Man. I won't tell you much about it. There's something that's really simple that they do that makes me go, kind of like how Babadook's so simple at the start. Yeah. That really got me. And if it kept going there, I think I would have totally stayed in it. I like the movie. But as a whole, I enjoyed it. Like it's a worthy sequel to Insidious. It's lacking maybe a little bit of the assurance, like where Insidious 2 goes absolute bonkers. So it's so much fun. And number one's just a fucking great movie. I felt like there was maybe a couple tonal shifts that didn't bring me along on the ride. And the last act for me, I kind of just was like, like for me, the last act, it has this really interesting, obviously without spoiler, there's a ghost, a major haunting in the film who's so well done. He's so interesting. The character, the way it looks, what it does. There's never even one scene where they talk about what it was when it was alive or what it did or why it's like it or anything. And I was like, by the end of the movie, I was like, wait a minute. It wasn't until the end that I was like, oh, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing the tension of who number 2 is all about the person who was alive and was a serial killer and dressed up as a girl. So for me, that was one of Lynn Shaye's kicks ass all throughout. It's really cool to see her. The Spec boys maybe feel a little more shoehorned in, and that could have been because Lee was directing. They didn't feel as assured the way they're put into this movie. But it's definitely worthy. I mean, I'll take Insidious movies over all those other franchises any day of the week, like Paranormal, because there's a lot of creativity in it.
Yeah.
And there still is. And it's not, it wasn't like Lee dropped the ball in any way. It's more just I felt like maybe.
Well, we're up to part 3.
Yeah, it's part 3. And it doesn't jump the shark. So it's not a part 3 that goes to, if anything, maybe it goes to, it's a little safer, because 2 was so out there. But I think the cool thing is it won't ruin the potential for more because it is set in the backstory. But there's, I do think, everyone should see it anyway. And the start is particularly.
Right.
There's just saying, did you see it yet?
Did you see it, Spooky?
I didn't see it yet, but I will say this about it. I think it's awesome that Lynn Shaye is like the queen of horror now. We're all friends with her. We all love her, and we have for many years. But holy shit, she is like...
She really is the lead of this movie.
This is her movie.
This is her movie. It starts with a young girl, for the first 20, 30 minutes, but then it becomes completely Lynn's movie. That's great. And that's the cool thing about this film. But there, Lee, for a first directing too, he does a lot of things right, especially in the setup. It's just, that's a big job for your first gig. That's why it should have been Coscarelli. Just saying, give Coscarelli an Insidious movie. I'm still preaching. Give him 4.
Maybe 4.
But I think you'll have fun. I don't think anyone will not have fun watching it.
I'm going to try to catch it this weekend.
It's a date, Rob. I'll go with you.
Good date movie.
Yeah.
And then I'll end on this one because that way Bekah can chime in.
Because I think we saw the same.
We did. Yeah. Look, this is a weird one for me because this was probably my most anticipated film of the year. After It Follows, the poster is the best poster of the year. A lot of the things about it sounds a little similar to something I was writing, and so I was very eager to see what the tone of the movie is. This is We Are Still Here, and I had a funny reaction where...
Which Spooky saw this one too.
Yeah, he saw it. A lot of the things that I was excited about in it didn't work for me. And mostly it was in the kind of the construction of the tone of the movie, which the actual ghosts and the kind of horror elements are phenomenally good. I mean,
amazing.
It might be one of my favorites in a recent movie.
Some of the scariest stuff of the year. But the
actual creatures, but not scary in the sense of tone. I actually feel at no point is there a single scene that builds tension, dread, or an actual a horror tone. What happens is they just go you walk in the house and you see something for a second and something grabs you and you're like, whoa, where's the actual the Polanski burn of the scene?
And half the time it was just Spooky and I had a conversation about this at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, if I remember correctly. That a lot of them even take place in broad daylight.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them.
And it's not even like there's a tone or like a shadow moves or something like that. It's like they walk into the house and then it's standing in the doorway and it's like, hi, and then it kills them.
A little bit. It's mostly a tonal thing, and there's so much in this movie to like, and I see why it's getting raves, because it has got these things are fucking awesome looking, and they're used really well. But it also, the tone, in the first 20 minutes, I honestly didn't know if it was kind of meant to be comic. It felt almost like a throwback to, everyone's been citing Fulci, which I think is way off. It doesn't have any of the Fulci pacing or tone at all.
I'd say
it's like regional
it has the
SOV.
Fulci gore. What it did have was the Fulci, like when they rip the throat out and then you see like a geyser for 10 minutes, or not 10 minutes, but
But I felt like it was gore. I felt like there was a lack of gore.
I think, Spooky and I talked about that one.
And honestly, I think it's such a, like you said, there's so many good things about it that, to me, I'm not a fan of slow burn, and that beginning, as far as I was concerned, was a slow burn, and I was like, all right, let's get there. And then out of nowhere, they have these awesome jump scares, and like you were saying about Insidious, like, it's rare when we all jump for real.
It's hard to pull off.
And
the car
there's
scene.
A couple good ones.
There was a car scene in this where like she's driving a car.
Don't tell too much, because
I'll just say something happens in the car. The car scene, I jumped, and I wasn't expecting that.
I guess I just don't agree like that. It's like every review is like it's very European and Fulci. I'm like, you know what? I think it's the opposite. I think it's very American SOV 80s regional filmmaking. I think, and not as an insult, I feel like it's got way more in common with the acting styles in those types of movies than it does in the European film. Maybe if they dubbed it or something, but it's a very mixed bag. Like Lisa Marie and Larry Fessenden are awesome when they come into the movie, and it injects
Larry
the movie.
Larry Fessenden is amazing.
He kind of steals it, but then the couple at the start, for me, when it's slow burn, they didn't. I just didn't believe what I was watching. Like I wasn't.
It was so great to see Barbara Crampton again.
It's great to see her.
It's weird, like that. I went to the premiere, so she was there, and I saw her in real life for the first time in forever, right? And I was like, wait, I thought she was 100 years old now. And she's...
Oh, no, she's
like smoking hot and like still looks awesome. And then on the screen in that movie, they really do a crazy job making her look weird and old.
They make her look kind of homely in it.
Homely, that's the right word for it. And in real life, she's stunning. And I was like, wait. I thought when I got to meet her, it's going to be like this old lady, but not at all. But I thought she did pretty good. Yeah, it was nice to see her out.
But I actually think I liked the movie a little bit more than Elric this time, because I would recommend it to people definitely.
I would too. I liked it. I just didn't love it, and I thought I was going to love it.
Yeah, see, I didn't love it. I will say that it will not be my fave film of the year, but I do think it did some really interesting and innovative stuff, which I would highly recommend horror fans to check out. The last 30 minutes I really liked,
but it also felt like there's a lot of rushed storylines in there, because they're halfway through they kind of change the kind of direction of the film, and you're like, and then it happens really quick. There's a lot that happens very quickly,
drop, and then it shifts gears.
And it's like, look, I don't never want to. I will never go after movies. Like if there's a movie like this that I'm like mediocre about, I'm never going to tweet, oh, this movie's going to ever. I'm never going to go out of my way to make people think not, because I would want people to see this is the kind of movie I like. There's just things in the drama of it that I feel like weren't executed to keep me in the movie, whereas the horror stuff was actually really good.
I have to say, I love movies that are rough on the edges from new filmmakers. Yeah, and I know Ted's done a couple other things before, but like Sweatshop and there's another one, right?
But as a writer, this is his first directing.
But it's exciting to see like one of our gang doing something really exciting. Right. And to me, when you see something, even did you guys see? Did you like Housebound?
I loved Housebound. That was my favorite film from last year.
Oh my god, I totally agree. It was so great, and everyone's talking about Babadook, and it's like the second fucking coming of Christ. And then this Housebound movie comes out, and it's like, it's rough on the edges. The acting isn't great through the whole thing. It's pretty good.
Oh, are you kidding? That lead girl, Morgana?
The lead girl was great.
You could make a movie out of her facial expressions.
That's exactly it, though, is that it was so rough on the edges. It didn't have to be perfect, and we all agree that it was a great film where we can all sit here for the next 30 minutes and debate Babadook. You know,
I think you're also right about rough around. Horror films don't need to be perfect.
Exactly,
you know, they just need to get something right, and it definitely did. It was maybe expectations are part of it. You hear at festivals all the word, and that became the film that for me I was going, oh, I wonder if that's going to be the film that really turns me on. But
for young 13, 14-year-old kid watching horror for the first time, is this going to be like one of those movies that we saw?
I think it's pitched older. I don't think it's pitched for young people.
It's a way too slow of a burn at the beginning. There's like a 30-second shot of just watching a birdhouse sway in the tree, like the breeze. I'm not kidding. Okay. There's a birdhouse shot.
Yeah. And the whole cast is 50. So
And it's about her dead son, and you learn that in like
Larry's
the first
39.
2 minutes. So.
Back off.
That's what I said.
Everyone's 39. Back off. But yeah, and there's some local actors.
I saw a little cameo by our buddy John Tarani.
I saw him too.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What did you see, Bekah?
In addition to We Are Still Here, I saw Let Us Pray. And I loved Let Us Pray.
Really?
Or sorry, yeah, it is Let Us Pray, right? Yeah, Pray spelled funky. That's it.
This was a straight to VOD cut.
Yeah, and it's the Irish film.
Oh.
And a first-time director and everything. And it's essentially about a guy hits a guy with a car. And the guy who's driving the car gets taken into the police station. Pollyanna McIntosh plays the cop. So the tall girl from The Woman. She is so badass in this film. Cool. And she's not trying to be hot, but she comes across as hot just because it's Pollyanna. And and she takes him into the police station. And the guy that they hit is disappeared. Like they can't find him. And they take him into the police station. You kind of realize immediately that she's new there and that everyone there are total assholes. Like all of the other cops are assholes. And the people who are there locked up are just assholes too. It's these horrible people. Well, eventually the guy that was hit with the car kind of stumbles his way in. And then things start happening, kind of supernatural things, and things slowly start unwinding, and it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. And I absolutely love the film. The plot has some problems, and there are times that I'm kind of like, oh, don't go that direction, and they go there briefly. It gets batshit at the end, but it is probably the most beautifully shot film I've seen this year so far. It is the same cinematographer as The Canal, which, though I didn't love the film that much, it's beautiful.
Was it misogynist, Bekah? Was it?
No, this one
What have you got against Irish people? What is
That's it, exactly. But it's kind of like, within the first 20 minutes what the big twist is going to be. It's not they kind of present it more innovatively, but I've seen things like this before. So within the first 20 minutes kind of what the twist is going to be, but where it goes and how it gets there is really innovative. And again, it's beautiful. The entire thing is in the police precinct. It maybe goes out of it for less than 5 minutes throughout the entire film.
It is hard really to keep a twist these days. I can't fault them on that.
Where'd you see it? Where was it?
It was on VOD.
Okay, it's on VOD now.
Had you heard from someone that it was worth watching, or did you risk it?
I risked it. The reason it popped up on my recommendation thing, and it had 5 stars. Wow. And usually everything I watch is in the 3-star range. Right. And so if something has 5 stars, I'm like, wow, I should check this out.
And it has a pretty cool poster too.
Yeah, it does.
It was wait, what is that?
And it had an amazing jump scare. One that it was the best one for me so far this year because the movie itself was not scary. I will say it's definitely more of an interesting plot, but it's not a thrill a minute thing. But there is one jump scare that definitely did it for me because I wasn't expecting it. And then
jump scares are incredibly. I want to talk about jump scares for 1 second before you move. They are they are the thing that is missing in horror sometimes because as people have watched so much and you get used to things. I remember Final Destination 1 or 2 had the good car where the guy gets hit by the car and you're like, whoa! It's often those kind of scares that work really well. But now sound effects are basically the only thing they try to scare us with. It's usually just a sound effect. But I got to say, there's something incredibly humbling. It's like when I lived in Chicago, I would always say falling on your ass in the ice once a year is a very humbling and important thing. You fall down and you hit your ass, you look around, you feel embarrassed. I felt the same way in Insidious where I had these jumps. I was I felt really good for a second afterwards because I'm oh good, I'm not fucking callous and I'm still in this thing. So I think there's something really beautiful when people can still pull a couple of those.
And this movie is not a scare a minute movie. So when it's just going along with this really fascinating plot and then it's literally just a character moves a certain way and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. And that's all it was, but it was enough to just completely startle me.
Did you, when you saw Audition the first time where the bag moved and the phone, did you?
That isn't a jump scare for me. That's
that was a big one for me.
Whoa.
That was I remember seeing that with a group of people where just everyone moved whoa when it first came
out. That's not
a
gasp, which I know I gasped when I was watching this. And then I also watched Predestination again, which I had talked about a couple of weeks ago. Again, because I'd seen it already. And then I watched it again with Dave Parker and Johnny Higgins. And I absolutely loved it even more the second time. So I just had to plug that enough to say,
what made it better the second time? Because it was a cool movie.
It's like The Sixth Sense when you go back and watch it the second time. Because the first time you're watching it and as it's unraveling, it's awesome, but you don't really understand what you're seeing. Right. And then the second time I went back and watched it, there are so much nuances that you do not catch the first time. It was just even this one point where somebody goes, shut up, you son of a bitch. And he goes, you have no idea. And it's suddenly you're like, oh my God, I didn't even get that the first time. See, if you haven't seen it, you're not going to get it.
Without giving anything away.
That doesn't give anything away.
You've seen Time Crimes.
Yeah.
Same thing where you go back and you're like,
thing.
You're just putting the math together. Like, did this work? Where did they mess up? And they haven't.
When I went over there and they were like, let's watch Predestination again. And they were like, oh, but you've already seen it. I was like, no, seriously, I'll watch it again. I want to see how it works because it is Predestination. It's a very intricate puzzle.
All right. I gotta see this thing.
Yeah, and that's by the guys who did Daybreakers, right?
Yeah.
The Moe brothers or whatever.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I highly recommend it. The second time was even better. And now I really want to read the book. It's based off a Heinlein novel. I don't even know how you say his last name, but it's based off a novel, I think called We Are All Zombies or some type of.
What's the point of the book?
What's the point of
the
book?
A book.
It's got words, and sometimes
we live in LA.
They're on your iPad.
The only reason people read in LA is if they're considering optioning it into
if it's
a
greenlit,
movie.
read it. If it's not, what are you? Stop wasting your time, Bekah. Jeez.
No, but it's like Pontypool for me made me go back and read the book series that it was based off of. So
that was a series. So it continued.
Sounds
the
like
story
Pontypool.
continued.
It's actually part of a trilogy.
I'd be curious where that one. That's a film I wanted a sequel to. Pontypool.
There is already there's
been in the works
3
for a
more.
while, right?
So and there is a sequel that's been in the works for a while. I don't know when it's coming out, but we've been hearing about it for a while.
It's not filmed yet, though.
I don't think so. I think it was just like we're making one, and then nothing happened. So
what if we're in the sequel right now? What if this is the sequel?
It's the start. Now we're gonna have to reverse time.
Begun.
Yeah.
You guys just reminded me, actually, before we go on, we got to talk a little bit of TV because we don't get to do it much. And 2 things that I've been really excited about. Number one, I started watching Wayward Pines.
I watched the first episode.
Up to the 4th episode.
Okay, and I know nothing about this show, so you got to back up and tell me what it is.
Just watch it. I actually am digging it a lot. I think it's really,
How many episodes
really fun.
did you see?
4.
Okay, I only saw 1, and I was like, at the end of it, I was like,
No. Watch the second episode.
I like everyone in it.
Yeah, I mean, really solid group of actors. Matt Dillon is great in it.
Yeah.
And
Shannon Sossaman from Sinister, too.
Love her.
Yeah, she's great.
She's great in it. Terrence Howard, Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, it's a big cast.
Definitely make it at least through the end of the second episode because, and of course, M. Night Shyamalan's a name is attached to this, but it was like exec producer. They don't really push that too much.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because it's based on a series of books, apparently. I didn't know that.
I don't know.
But it's really interesting. It's Matt Dillon's an FBI agent looking for 2 other FBI agents that have gone missing. And he goes in this direction to find them and literally gets in an accident and wakes up in this town called Wayward Pines where they were. But it's kind of got like that... I guess like that village sort of thing where it's like he can't get out.
And the whole, is it all an illusion thing? Because there's a great scene in the first episode where he's just walking along and it's like a picturesque like David Lynch town and you hear crickets coming. It's at night. You hear crickets coming from like the bushes and he kind of just leans down and he picks up and it's like a microphone that's making cricket sounds. Yep. And he's like, and he kind of looks at like, huh? And you just little details like that where you're like, okay, that's cool. Now I'm a little more interested.
What's cool about it is that they keep doing things every episode. Like the second episode, there's some pretty like a shocker, and then they do another shocker in the 3rd episode. Okay. So
how many episodes is there going to be? Because it's
I think it's like I don't know. I think it's going to be like a 10 miniseries or something like that. But literally all 4 were up on Hulu, so I was like, let me just watch the first, and I just marathon them, and I just enjoyed the hell out of it because. Every time you think that you figured out a little more of the mystery, like, oh, I guess it's this, then all of a sudden they add some crazy element that you're like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on?
This sounds like my new Lost.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Sold.
Often the problem with
really like it a
shows
lot.
like that is they get canceled too early. Like, so it's good that it's only going to be 10. Like
they're doing, it's
what was it called? Pennyville or something. It had Sam Neill and it had all these people in those small American towns like last year or the year before that. And you get like 6 episodes in, just as you get hooked, you hear, oh, I've heard it got canceled. And you're like, motherfuckers. You'll never know the mystery.
Cult show I was interested in. It was like the following in this other cult show. I think it was
The Cult.
And they never finished it. Or the one that killed me now is Mystery Inc., the new Scooby-Doo. It's like right in the middle of like this mad mystery going on and it ends and then nothing else happens.
Oh, bummer.
And so, I will never
Has anyone here watched Salem? Because I've just been hearing from people recently how good it is.
I love their posters.
Somebody just told me it's an amazing show and that by the second season it's like a masterpiece.
So much stuff on that on the Fango Facebook page. I've seen so many comments like, oh yeah, Salem's great. And I'm like, I have never watched
because the period piece quality made me go, because I just maybe for TV I didn't believe they could pull it off.
For some reason kind of put it in the same vein vein as Charmed for some reason.
Well, yeah, maybe a darker.
So did I. I just assumed it was that kind of like, okay, it's a light.
It's like a female
silly.
If anyone
show.
watches
Not
it, please tell us if it's
but
good, because
yeah.
I've just been hearing recently. I mean, Penny Dreadful, by the end of the first season, I was like totally on board. That show was just utterly fucking fantastic by where it was headed. I haven't seen the second season, but if you haven't watched that and you get past the first, like I think it was around episode 4,
that's where
it starts to really break with the lore. It has a Frankenstein, but then it breaks with the lore. It does some really.
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to do my research on Salem, and I think we all should, because Rodman Flender, friend of our shows, he actually mentioned to me he's really good friends from the Corman days with, I guess, the main writer showrunner. His name is Adam Simon. He directed, he wrote The Brain Dead.
Yeah,
the
Brain
one
Dead
with,
movie. I love that film. That's a cool movie.
Yeah, and Carnosaur.
Buzz Wallach.
And he wrote Bones. Bones, the Snoop Dogg horror movie. But no, Rodman mentioned him to me recently, saying, "Oh, you guys, he's done a lot of really interesting stuff. You should have him on." And he said, he's on Salem. You should talk. You should check it out.
Yeah, maybe you should watch a couple episodes. But yeah, horror TV. I think part of the problem is we're being inundated by horror TV, right? So it's hard to know where the good ones from the bad ones. You get burned on a couple.
Oh, there's so much more
But there's some good ones out there.
Like Hannibal. That's what you wait for.
Wait, and here's the thing. Somebody commented on that saying that opening of that was a tribute to a movie, and I didn't even pick up on it. Do you know what it was?
Oh, no. Yeah,
somebody on our Facebook page
somewhere.
commented saying it's an obvious tribute to a page, and I was just thinking, what is it? Is it like a French film or something? I have no idea.
Oh, I got to look it back up. There's something with the motorcycle, right?
Maybe I need to see it again.
If it was a French film, you would know.
That's why I thought, well, she even went out of her way to say I should have known it, so I don't know what it was.
Oh, no.
But it was slick.
It's really cool.
That show's just pushing.
And I love the way that they're kind of manipulating what happened in the books in completely different order.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be half as interesting.
Yeah, essentially.
I'll take this moment to establish that Fango 343, our July issue, is being guest edited by Brian Fuller and will feature a large amount of Hannibal coverage.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There we go.
Continue.
Horror kid,
No, he is. Yeah, I mean, again, would love to get him on here.
But it's cool because we're actually seeing the stuff we never got to see really in any of the movies. It's, when we're seeing Behind the Mask finally, which after 2 seasons of not seeing behind the, like, what is Hannibal like behind the mask when he's actually doing things to people? I feel like I never really saw that in the movies much. Like Silence of the Lambs is a chase movie once he gets out. The last Hannibal, we see a couple scenes with Ray Liotta, but there's something
But they're already doing like stuff that happened in Hannibal. Right. I mean, what's interesting to me, and this is not a spoiler if you like the movies, because you'd have to have read the books, but the way at the very end of the Hannibal book, the one that's just called Hannibal that Ridley Scott made into a movie, he kind of manipulates Clarice Starling into sort of being his bride. It's like a really weird and crazy ending that would have never flown in the movie. And what I like is, even though we haven't even met the Clarice Starling in this, they've just kind of put the Gillian Anderson character in that place. So we're seeing that really radical stuff from the end of the Hannibal book, but now, completely in a different context with a different timeline.
It's really interesting.
It's interesting how they're mining their material from the books and putting it like in a completely different order.
He's just so compelling to watch. Mads Mikkelsen in that role is just like, I remember
really
when
nailed it, because the first
few, you're like,
I still defy you to understand a single word he's saying in the first 3 episodes
but you
of
don't
season
need to
1.
understand, Rob, when you go to the Hannibal.
But at some point,
sounds like his tongue's on the bottom of his mouth.
But then at some point he just nailed it. Halfway through the first season, now he's who I think of when I think of
It's the
Hannibal.
way he looks at people. It's his stare. It's just the way he observes the things around him. I can see the wheels turning, man, and that's great film acting.
Yeah, totally.
It's really compelling.
So,
I can't wait to see where this thing goes. Though I did read a comment today that said Brian Fuller saying, I doubt there'd be a fourth. Like he was pessimistic that he could get renewed, given how crazy they were going. So we'll see. Well, I mean, the big thing is with everything they're doing now, the real reason is inevitably season 4 has to be Silence of the Lambs, the one movie and story they don't have the rights to. Right.
So it's like, if they get to season 4, it's like, can they work something out by then with the rights to do that story? Which I would love to see that as a series. If you think of a 10 episode of Silence of the Lambs.
It would be really cool to see it from a different perspective. The same case that's going on, but from a different angle.
Will they completely do something else? And the reason that is because that was the one movie that was done by a different company. And they were trying to make a competing show called Clarice, which never happened.
Right.
So
recently?
Yeah, like when when Hannibal was getting made, another company, one of the writers on Dexter was on Clarice. And it's just like they kind of beat Hannibal beat them to it, and never happened. Yeah.
There's this insane amount of horror TV coming, like the amount of press releases that we are getting. It's like daily now. And it's a lot of it is based off movies. I mean, like the Scream movie and the Friday the 13th and things like that. Like we're hearing about so much, but then so much of it is just like has nothing to do with anything. It's just like, a town where crazy shit happens. And we're seeing a lot of those. So I'm kind of psyched. A lot of it's on Amazon, Hulu, and Netflix. So
I'd rather there be too much than not at all.
Yeah,
exactly. Even if it's not all good, I'd rather it be out there.
Especially because everything that we're seeing in the film world right now is so low budget. Yeah. Like we were talking beforehand, and like if I hear somebody who's making a movie for $500,000 right now, I'm like, oh my God, a millionaire. Whereas the film world is so low budget right now, so it's good to see some actual budgets happening in television.
I just had another golden idea, because I've been talking about it before on the show. Urban Legends as a TV show. So, because I was unhappy about that movie, but I love the concept of Urban Legends done as TV. You could do that forever. Great recurring show. Mm-hmm. Greenlight me. Somebody.
Call us.
Call her. You can greenlight me. Tweet me to greenlight me.
Nice.
Well, let's bring Spooky fully into the fold here. And
I think, actually, that's a good segue going from the low budget to where we're at today. Because I think right now, and forgive me, but horror's kind of been a bummer lately. Like for the last few years, there are some really awesome standout movies as expected, but there's so much of just not so great stuff.
It's saturation. We're seeing a saturation of just quick and dirties. Like rush them out as quickly as we can.
But last year was my favorite year in a long time, I got to say, in terms of just great movies. Like 10 top movies. Yeah. I can't talk about all the other stuff because you could be right on that. No, but for me, that individual gems last year was a good year.
Spooky, you should talk about, like, right before we came on here, we were talking about when we first met, which was, several years back. We were saying that we were he was doing Bloody Disgusting when I was starting Icons of Fright, almost like 10 years ago. Yeah. And that was kind of, quote unquote, our golden age, to cover all these films. What you found 10 great independent movies.
Yeah, they're independent. You're right about studio level. Yeah.
That's the thing is, like, I remember the time where we'd pick a top 10 list and it'd be half and half. It's like, we see a great indie movie, but the studio did this, or there's a Saw sequel or something. Now it's like there is nothing from a studio level theatrically that's really hitting, unless you occasionally get like a Conjuring type thing.
I'm hoping that Crimson Peak will be kind of on the level.
See, and you know what?
Crimson Peak is great as it looks, and is hopeful that we're all going to walk out of that going, that was awesome. Mm-hmm. But is it really like horror like we're wanting? That looks like a super expensive episode of Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, it looks fairy tale.
Could be, yeah.
And you know what? I know everyone's like super stoked for that. I'm like the one naysayer only because, and I hate to sound like the get off my lawn kind of guy, but Del Toro, like, I love him. But as a person and as a storyteller, but he's the one that fully embraces the CG stuff. So like I watched that trailer to Crimson Peak, and I don't find like a single thing scary or interesting in it because I'm like, it's all CG. It's CG ghosts, CG environment. It's all CG. See, and I just don't care.
I don't know if Del Toro has made a film I don't like yet. Like,
it's true.
Kronos, going all the way back, I cannot think of a single film he's done that I haven't been like, oh my God, that was just amazing.
His Blade 2 is better than most Marvel movies. Yeah. Like 99% of Marvel movies are below his Blade 2, in my opinion.
No, Blade 2 is great.
Even the ones he's produced, like the Mama
Orphanage.
and stuff, and Orphanage.
Yeah.
Like,
Orphanage is really good.
Like even Mama, like that is way like a crime on the CG side of stuff. But it's still really watchable and interesting.
That is definitely a movie. If somebody went back, stripped it back to its practical, it probably would take on this actually fantastic level.
There's a video of that on YouTube.
I've heard,
where it's the girl that they actually base the CG off of, and it's like a camera test with her where she's just like screaming, and it's so much scarier to see just a person screaming than it is to see this CG thing with like wild hair swimming. And
I gotta admit, that original Mama short, which is on YouTube, is terrifying. It's only like a minute and a half long, but it is so scary, like really scary.
When did Spooky? When do you think that started changing in terms of? I mean, do you remember a year where you started to see? Was it towards the end of the Saw cycle where things just started, like the studio stuff started to peter out?
I don't know. I think it's actually been a lot more recent than that.
I'd say last 3 years, 2 years.
Yeah, 2-3 years. As far as like when suddenly I'm not excited anymore about the new things that are being announced. But like there's good stuff and we're going to dig it and we'll all go see Sinister 2, 3, 4, and 5 or whatever it is. But when was the last time since a non-indie film has been like, oh my God, I can't wait. Like what you were saying for Crimson Peak. We all do the same thing when it comes to Avengers or whatever. We're like, oh my God, that's going to be awesome. And then Mad Max comes out and it kicks Avengers ass. And we're like, holy shit, like...
I always feel guilty saying that, but it probably was Evil Dead 2. I mean, Evil Dead the remake, even though I feel terrible, but it was so freaking entertaining that I couldn't help but like it.
And I remember the night that we all went to see Evil Dead the remake, where we were all super psyched, and it was a huge crowd, and like the theater was stacked, and we knew everybody there, and everyone was cheering through all the segments.
That and Cabin in the Woods had the best audience I've been in for a horror movie in the last like 5-6 years.
Those are great examples.
But they're, like you're saying, they are very few and far between.
But if I look at like the studio films from last year, I mean, it was like the quiet ones and Annabelle. Nothing I got really psyched about. It was just all kind of like,
and we all saw them, and some are good and some are not so good. Like, and then I get surprised by like something Jezebel, which I was like, I thought this was going to be terrible, and it was just kind of all right. I dig it.
I love that actress. Well, she's the actress in Predestination. Kind of just, I love her.
Yeah, she's really.
So that's an indie, right? Jezebel?
I guess that would be it. That's right on the edge.
I haven't seen it, but it looked fairly.
It had what looked like more than $1 million budget, which is like studio level for horror.
I guess it's all blurring the lines too now. That's one thing that's changing a lot. Because Bloom is a studio, but it could be a $100,000 looking movie, right? Like a Paranormal Activity.
And that's kind of what the trend has become right now. Like even when I was watching, We Are Still Here. I mean, I used to look at something like that and go, this is totally low budget. It's all in one house with like 2 people, but that's the norm now. I mean, that's what Jezebel is. It's all in one house with 2 people. 3 if you include the supernatural stuff. So, I mean, they're all small, even on a studio level, because that's what every Blumhouse is. Let's 4 people in a room, let's get a video camera and a couple ghosts, and boom, we have another
horror's always been a bit
activity.
like that. Like that's the difference between Mad Men and say Graduation Day. Similar scope. I watch Mad Men, I'm like, this is so good, and then I watch Graduation and go, oh, it's a turkey. They're kind of doing the same thing, but the execution is different.
But look at what we just said just minutes ago of when you brought up television, and everybody was excited to talk about what's coming in television. You're excited to say, no, there's not just what we're seeing. There's another dozen coming that are going to be hopefully awesome too. Yeah. But with horror lately, and again, of course, there's exceptions across the board. There's really good movies. There's really okay movies. And there's a whole lot of, I guess I had to see it. I feel informed. I can talk about it now. But
what are your top 10 of I feel informed movies? Go. And say it dispassionately if possible.
I want that to be a rating scale. It's like 5-star, 3-star. I had to see it.
Yeah. I feel informed.
Well, and for us, especially just being in the horror community and having so many friends that are like, oh, you worked on that. I bet, I'll check it out. When before you would have been like, okay. So there is a lot of that right now, and again, I don't mean to be like the get off my lawn guy either. But
yes, we're at that age now, Dan.
Is that what it is?
Guys, get off my lawn.
But you lived through the greatest time in the medium for like you did as a kid.
Yeah,
so you got all this like fantastic, and then you grow to a point where all these big releases that you're part of, and you're talking to all the people, and you know them all, and then it kind of wanes for a while. It makes total sense that you'd be like, is it going to come back around? Maybe not. You know,
I justified this as the reason that I liked. Oh crap, why did I just forget it? The new Ridley Scott Prometheus so much because it reminded me of an 80s film where in the 80s it was all about we are leaving our normal lives and we are going somewhere crazy and there's going to be something scary there. We're going to London to find werewolves. We're going to Santa Carla and find vampires at the amusement park, but we're setting it all at the amusement park because that's more exciting than our houses. And that's why I like Prometheus was it was all about going to somewhere new. Whereas now it's all about the horror invading where we already are. And it's like finding it in our homes. And so that kind of, it reroutes it in a much cheaper setting.
Yeah. The ambition of it. I think on a grander, it's just the way, and again, Dan and I were talking about this before, but, and I want to talk about the beginnings and getting into Bloody Disgusting and doing the journalism thing too at some point, but it's the evolution. It's the evolution of the way we consume entertainment, the way we see movies, and the way we get information about it from the web. Because Dan was saying, like, when we were doing Bloody Disgusting and Icons, mid 2000s or whatever, it was always, the websites were a thriving thing. This is before, Facebook and everybody got their information on Twitter. People had, I was one of them. I woke up, I had to go to Shock, I had to go to Fangoria, I had to go to Dread Central and Bloody Disgusting. I had to hit the 5 sites right off the bat and get all their headlines. And, there came a point where everyone started morphing and cannibalizing the same headlines and not really having much of an identity. And it's kind of like, that's because now advertisers were throwing money at the website and we're all struggling for that money. And we were trying to figure out, well, what's the next way for people to consume the next version of content? I only bring this up because Dan, had a lot of video projects that he was always like championing and trying to get off the ground, like, Bloody Disgusting TV and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is like, I was just laughing. I was like, now that would be no problem. It's like, but you were trying to get money to do a show, 6 years ago when nobody knew exactly how to watch it. It's like, wait, watch it on the web?
Well, they're also like, and we were obviously, I was like probably a year or so after, I guess, when I started This Week in Horror with Ted, and I started that because I was at a network that I already had a job there, so that was the lucky part. But it was just, people always throw that it's ahead of its time, but it literally was. You're making something, and they're going, because Google TVs are about to come out. The studio would tell us Google TVs are going to revenue 5 years later, and it's just happening now.
Right.
So what we were doing we built all this content, long form content, and no one wants to watch long form. I mean, some people do, but most people don't want to watch it for that long.
We had the same thing over at Fango, and this is the same time that you guys were doing Bloody Disgusting TV. Fango had Fango TV, and we put movies on there. And I remember sitting in a production meeting discussing, would people actually watch movies on their computers? And it was like a big discussion at the time. I don't know. Would you? I wouldn't watch a movie on my computer.
No, but I
all the time now. I do it every day.
But I always said the same thing back then that I say now, and I know as a consumer, as a fan, it's like the moment that they can bridge the gap between watching something on your computer and your actual TV, like once they break that when you can see, and that's the thing, Netflix started out as you had to download the next Netflix player on your laptop if you wanted to see it. Netflix was, I get it in the mail. I can't wait to watch it on my TV. The second that it became an app on your Sony device or on your PlayStation,
and now
whatever,
on the TVs themselves.
And that's the thing. I turn on my player and I have access to Amazon Prime, Netflix, YouTube, whatever, and that's as long as I can watch something there. The point being is we were chasing and hoping for this money to make this kind of original content at a time where we had nowhere to watch it other than our laptops. And now, because none of those endeavors worked out, nobody has money to make them now when that is
and
thriving.
Everyone wants everything for free now.
No
one wants to pay for any content.
But what's interesting, I think, is like, as you were saying, like all three of us had different video shows. I remember talking to you when we very first met, going like, how do we make the Magic Castle for horror people only, and we'll film there every week and it'll be great. Cool. And basically that became Jump Cut to a degree, right? Yeah. But like the reality was we were ahead, and there wasn't really a way to monetize it just yet. It was getting there, and you just couldn't do it. And it's expensive. It's not cheap. Yeah. So we go, your show. And I remember having a conversation. I have no idea who the guy was at Fango TV at some, like a Sacramento Horror Con, who was like, wow, this guy is not a Fangoria dude. And he's all like, we're going to do Fango TV, and it's going to be a subscription model, and you're going to pay $30 a month, and it's going to be great. And I'm like, well, what are you showing? And he goes, Night of Living Dead, and, a bunch of public domain to start. I'm like, okay, and it was just...
We gave away free DVD players with it, too. That was the weird thing, was we had stacks of free DVD players, and we gave, for everyone who subscribed to Fango TV, they got a free DVD player.
Oh, my God.
I remember that.
That's desperation.
Stacks of them that we would carry to the office. But again, it was like the confusing thing of how do we monetize this, because it costs money to shoot video. So in order to make the web shows, to get the advertising dollars, we would have to plunk money down to shoot the video. But then how do you monetize the video? It was just, it's a weird model. And I still don't think that we've completely figured it out, because every day I receive press releases of people who are doing online TV shows and they're gone in a week. Because I still hold that it is a lot of times more expensive to produce video for online than you will make off the advertising dollars, unless you are literally receiving like 2 million views per video. Right. The pre-roll that you'll get will not match that.
This is actually where things are going in entertainment as well. Like, you look at what's actually connecting with youth, and what is, like, on YouTube, what are people actually watching? And it's not the overproduced shows.
It's vlogs.
Yeah. It's like the dude with his DVDs behind him talking about, so, like, Cool Duder, Sean,
what's his name? Wet something.
Is that the guy who shows up at
he's
Dark
in a lot
Dell
of Jose's films now.
Yeah, he's an awesome, he's like a big heavy set dude who's actually lost a bunch of weight.
He was
recently.
big.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He'll sit there, and his videos are literally him talking about what new movies he's gotten this week, and it's just him talking for 20 minutes, and they're captivating. even though it's just a fat dude talking about movies, really is what it is. But he's a character, and you get to know him in the same way.
And
like
they probably
you guys.
Also, there's a nerd quality to like they're tapping into an audience that's never been represented on video before. Like he's one of us, so they probably watch him and go. Suddenly, it's like probably 100,000. I mean, he has a huge following, and so people cast him in movies now.
And he's a really nice guy and like good to talk to. And now he's doing these little cameos in movies, which is really exciting. But I think that. Whenever we talk about like what's the next thing, you know, like Japanese horror's done and oh now it's gonna be Giallo and whatever's coming, but really I think it's gonna be durations will but I think durations are gonna change, and I think we're gonna see something where we're just at least our era, our generation is gonna be so confused by what it is, in the same way where adults don't get Tumblr. Teenagers.
Well, you know, it's funny. You were right on the money. Like years ago, you kept telling me it's like shorter. And it's like, no, I can't walk into a theater. It has to be 90 minutes.
Oh my God, this is like the biggest thing.
Right down to Vine clips, which are like, 15 seconds. You're like,
not even that, even just horror movies. Think about this. Like for all of the horror movies we've watched in the last like 3 years, how many of them would have been so much better if you cut 30 minutes out of it?
Oh my God, I say that at least once a week where I'm like, that would have been good. Let's just tighten that up a bit.
Spooky is fighting for the 60-minute horror.
Oh my God. No, serve the story, regardless of what the time is. If you can have the story that lasts 3 hours, then tell it properly, but serve the story. And if the story is 40 minutes long, because look, how many of those movies, even now that they're all kind of shrinking in budgets, those $1 million movies from the 2006, 2007 were really great Twilight Zones.
Right. Yeah,
that's padded to be 90 minutes.
That style of story, I definitely see it. A huge influence. Twilight Zone's got to be one of the biggest influences on the independent films, I think, in terms of the twists.
And told really tightly in 22 minutes or 24 minutes, whatever it was, every time, usually effectively. But I think that's the one thing where we're going is where we'll see it change is duration and how it's being done. And honestly, I think...
Did you see Black Box? Was it Black?
Yeah, Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. Yeah, that's a good example of that. Right? I mean, I said when I saw that episode, which one was it that I loved? The one with the justice system where they're all using their friends. After that finished, I was like, that's probably one of the best movies of the year. It's 40 minutes, but it's a movie. There's no way that's not a movie. It's not TV.
It's your purge.
Like, how is that TV? Like, it doesn't fit any of the boxes of what we think of as TV. It's not like watching a full horror film, but it just happens to be that length. So I see what you're saying. And also, that's that doesn't conform to television because there's only 6 episodes. Right. They're all highly produced like movies. Like they all have budgets of movies. Yeah, probably more than
those are 6 mini movies. Yeah,
and so I think that is an interesting idea, especially with things like Vimeo and original series that could be 10 minutes. And I don't watch a lot of that stuff, so I'm curious if one ever catches me. You know, I'll be curious to see. But younger people, they don't have that barrier at all.
But I love the idea of take
get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Hashtag get off my lawn.
My God, get off my lawn.
Killer POV now has like an age limit on it. Like if you're under 20,
none of us are Unfriended, and I think that ages us. I think the fact that none of us are Unfriended, and I heard it's good.
I really wanted to see it.
But you didn't see it either. No, we are the old people of horror.
One of the guys that I
always come here. I guess.
Oh God, Ken Hanley's going to make fun of us for this segment right now.
No, one of the guys that I work with on films all the time was the production designer on Unfriended, and the stories that he was telling me about how they shot it and how they did everything. It's amazing. I really want to see it because it sounds like it was like such a clever execution. And and I've heard it's actually a really good film. And I need to see it. I will bring myself to see it eventually.
But was there at any point, we all agree it looked interesting, at any point did you think you need to see it in the theater?
Oh, no. Not at all.
Why?
Not even
slightly. Staring at a computer screen.
I was like, I'll watch that on YouTube. And I don't ever watch things on YouTube.
Seems to be the appropriate way to watch it anyway. And the second it's on VOD, well, I'll be like, okay, here's my $6.
I'll wait till Lexi Alexander rips it off and sends me a copy.
Oh,
I hope she's listening on this.
Wow.
Don't go to war with her.
Is she like the forbidden topic everywhere?
No, I think she's just putting herself out there as the person who's telling everyone to rip off movies, I guess.
You know what sucks about that is she's so onto something smart and so off at the same time, only because we're all filmmakers that want to actually continue making movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, then that
stop everything. Talk about Uwe Boll now.
Oh my God.
So man, we should segue into crowdfunding.
No, let's talk about you.
Yeah, let's segue into crowdfunding.
So Richard Mall.
Sorry. Well, let me ask you, Spooky, do you have enough money to golf for the rest of your life?
to golf for the rest of my life.
That's what Yui Boll does.
That's the important thing.
Does he say that on the video?
At the end of it, he goes,
video.
I have enough money to go golf for the rest of my life, so I don't give a fuck about any of you.
Yeah, when he
I don't know
curses
if I have
out.
enough money to golf for the rest of the week, or even if I like, I don't
once.
even know how to golf.
Would you?
Mini golf, maybe.
Mini golf, I would do. Yes.
Yeah.
But no, that video was kind of funny.
It was the best thing he's ever made, hands down. Easily, that is my favorite Yui Boll production. And he should keep making those. Maybe he needs to be like the guy who reviews movies in his
It was definitely
bathroom.
the most fascinating. I watched the entire thing, and I can't say that for
funny,
a lot of the films.
Because it's a minute and a half.
Yeah. Short form, people.
Telling you. We're the future. Short movies. That's what it
But
is.
he's also like one of these remnants, and unfortunately, there's been people we loved like Bill Malone and Stuart Gordon, who we've had on the show when they were chasing these very high limits, like $350,000 or $400,000 on Kickstarter. And I think the days of that happening to established people is very rare. You know,
Yeah.
It seems like it has to be like somebody who's making a tuna sandwich and it goes viral and everyone chips in. He gets $1 million. It's absurd. Or it has to be
Wait,
you're getting 50 or 100.
sandwich?
Well, somebody did it with a potato or something. I don't know.
I'll pay you for that tuna
So here's
sandwich.
what's annoying about that, and I actually just wrote a blog and I haven't posted it yet because I'm like, do I sound whiny or not? But there's like a huge amount of shame in crowdfunding because of the potato salad, because anyone can do it,
It was
right?
potato salad.
It was like
it
donate
was, yeah.
and they made the money, right? And so then there was something recently, like the dumbest Kickstarter this week. Do you recall what it was? It was a water bottle that tells you when to drink water. Like your body doesn't already automatically tell you, hey, you're thirsty, but it was a water bottle that you could buy for $40 on Kickstarter, and they had like 70 grand.
In its defense, the voice is the Frankenhooker voice.
Then we would all buy it. Yeah.
What a
How great would that be?
Have a drink. I like that.
But anyway, yeah, that's it. It's weird. It's like it's a bummer, and you want to get mad at the format, but you also have to just go. It's just people's absurdity. Like humans are absurd. They sit around going, "Oh, that's funny," and they click a button and give $5, and suddenly 1 million people have done it. Whereas the things you fight tooth and nail to raise are a lot harder because you don't know these people. Like you're limited to your circle when you're kicks. Like I often go, "Oh, I could kickstart this," and I'm like, "But besides the people I know, who would give me money?"
See, that's what I always question.
But maybe they would. You don't know. You know, it's a weird faith thing, I guess.
Well, and have you guys talked a lot about this angle because you all?
Not necessarily.
No, I don't think so.
All right. So having used to work at Bloody Disgusting, and it's been years. I still to this day, of course, get lots of press releases of, hey, we're having a premiere, or of course they never send the movies anymore. But other than that, I still get all the invites and all the press releases. But I also get a lot of crowdfunding, like please support our idea or our movie.
Right.
And as press, it's hard. Like, what do you get behind and what don't you get behind? Because once you do one, then do you have to do this? Like
the floodgates.
We have talked about this. Totally. We have a policy at Fango that we don't cover any crowdfunding unless they're approved by the entire staff. And there's it's like me, Mike Gingold, Chris, Ken. It has to go through all of us before we will cover it. And very little gets through.
So what about Bill Malone's?
We did cover Bill Malone's.
Because he's got an awesome legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, we covered Stuart Gordon's because he was established. We covered Rob Zombie's because he was established. There's a photographer, I can't remember his last name, Jonathan something, that we all really, all five of us loved his work. So we covered that. But I mean, we get easily 5 a day.
Of course.
And we actually have a form letter that gets sent back that says thank you. We offer an advertising option for them for super cheap. It's like $100 advertising option for Kickstarter campaigns.
The thing I'm worried about is everyone she just cited that Fango supported failed. So now I'm seeing a bad pattern.
Except Rob Zombie.
Oh no, sorry, Rob Zombie.
The photographer did not fail. Okay. He got his.
Good.
So, yeah.
But it's sort of ugly, and at the same. And by the way, I'm doing a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo right now for Sleigh Bells to help me finish the movie, which is basically already finished. But I need to finish in post.
I like the finishing idea. I like the idea of
finishing.
That's the difference.
The ones who send us stuff that are like, I just have an idea and it's a slasher film, and here's a video of me talking about my slasher film. I am less likely to donate and put a lot of faith in those than, look, I paid to shoot the entire film. This is 3 months of my life. I just need to do post sound, and that costs a ton.
Certainly, because there's 4 of us at the table that could all do that right now on our cell phones of awesome ideas for movies. We all have these.
We have boards in our living.
Exactly.
I think all of us.
And also,
have
I kind of feel like in my gut that if you have $50,000 to shoot your movie and you know that's your whole budget, I'm kind of like, just shoot the whole fucking, put it all on the screen, man, and then just hope for the best afterward. Don't put $15,000 aside for post. Even though most people get mad at me for saying, I'm like, put it all on the screen and then hope to find the right favors at the back end. You know,
I think most of us would do that. Like
probably,
most films filmmakers, and I think that's where a lot of
I'm not allowed to
come
talk about budget for real, but I'll say what I can, which is when we shot our movie, we basically shot everything we could until we ran out of money. And my wife and I were like, okay, fuck, we have to pay what's left still. And somehow between credit cards and doing this visual effects job, my wife's a visual effects supervisor, so we'll get little odds and end jobs doing those occasionally, doing effects for films. And so like getting these little bits, suddenly there was 10 grand or 15 grand, which we didn't know we had. We don't. Now our credit cards remind us every month that, oh, you put a lot of money into this thing. But it was the exact same thing. Like you need just a little bit and you just get it as far as you can. But then at a certain point, at least for us, it was like, okay, now we need to finish this properly. We've put this much effort into it. It's not a $10,000 movie at all. So we put this much effort. Let's finish it right. And so for a year plus, I was like, I'm not doing crowdfunding. And go around the normal, like the traditional ways of getting financed. And what happened was, and you guys probably all have heard different versions of this, but there were lots of companies that were willing to give me the money. But my initial investors, would never see a dime. I'd have enough money to finish the movie, but I would never be able to pay back these people that actually had the faith to put up a large sum of money to make it. And I couldn't take any of those deals, and I wouldn't, now or ever. And I think because of that, we're as filmmakers in a really unique time because now we have to be scrappy. Yeah. And it sucks if we have to do crowdfunding, but maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Right now, we're not funded, on mine at least. We're getting there.
What surprises me about you taking so long to come around to crowdfunding is the fact that you've seen the fan base and the power of fan base by touring with Repo and touring with Devil's Carnival, which you were a major part of Devil's Carnival. We didn't mention those yet, but it's like, to me, that means you're on the floor seeing what it's like to take a film from place to place, to utilize what it is to actually a successful crowd campaign.
Yeah, that is like grassroots at its core, where you're literally taking it from city to city.
I would have thought in a way that would have been like, I can understand how you also wouldn't want to abuse that because you've looked into their eyes and met all these people. But I can also see that groundswell, if you can find a way to channel that in a positive way, can really create a fan base for your movie.
Well, what's interesting about Repo and Devil's Carnival is there was and I think this is true right now across the board. We just talked about Unfriended. Do we need to see it in the theater? No. Give us a reason to see Unfriended in the theater, we'll all go. But there really isn't like a compelling reason to get us out of our couch, away from our big screen TVs, to actually go to the theater and see something like that. And that's what Repo and Devils did well, was come to the circus, come to the show. Let's have fun here.
You had a girl in a metal bra with a drill grinding it, so it was like a shower of sparks pouring out from her chest. That got me to come.
And Carly Baker in a miniskirt there. She was one of them. I can't remember.
Now it's fun. I mean, I remember I saw a press screening of Repo way back, and when I saw it in a little tiny cramped up room in a screening room in the city, I had very mixed feelings about it. I was like, I don't know what the hell this is. But I remember that you and Darren and Terrence had booked a tour and we're coming through Jersey. And of course it's like, well, I'm right here. I want to see Spooky. I'd never seen it. I actually said, I can't imagine Spooky and snow in the same place, so I have to go because I associate you with California. So we drove up to see you guys, and I got the movie. It was just such so many people and costumes and really getting into it and shadow casting it. And, Darren and you guys all getting on stage. I think Alexa Vega was there too. And sitting Indian style on the stage and just giving the most candid stories about the making this thing and really making it a personal, that's the thing. It's if you knew you can go out tonight and see a movie and the director's going to be there and sit down and give you commentary right after. And there might be some weird, theatrical antics happening. It definitely makes you appreciate the whole thing a little bit more.
Well, I mean, we learned and watched and tried. Some of my team would deny this, but we watched Rocky Horror. We're all super big fans of Rocky Horror. I cast Barry Bostwick in my movie, and it's a highlight of life because I got to work with the guy from Rocky Horror.
Help me get Rob and Elric to come with me.
To see Rocky?
They would never come. I've asked them 2 years in a row on my birthday.
We haven't said no. We just haven't been fully...
That's because they're old and they don't like to stay up that late.
I know.
That's actually really true.
You're going to fall asleep. Get off my lawn!
No, Spooky comes too, I'll go. All right.
But no, I think the cool thing that I learned as a teenager and that we've always sort of embraced with Rocky is how much the audience is a part of it. And not very many movies are able to even do that. And Repo was designed as that kind of it's a musical, which, inherently like encourages people to get up and dance in the aisles and dress up and have fun if it's the right kind of movie. It's not salsa movie, you know.
I love salsa.
I heard.
Don't talk. Salsa's great. Rico.
Wow, she can even quote it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he's the main character. He's got good hair. So.
What kind of good hair?
It's kind of mullet-y, but it's coarse and curly
Where
at the
I've
same
never
time.
heard the word mullety and good hair at the same time.
Stop.
It was 1989 good hair.
Carry
She's from
on, Dan.
Appalachia. Cut her a break. Mullets just happened there. They just got there. It's still hot.
You're born with one, and if you cut it, it just grows right back.
Wow.
It's
Oh, that's a good horror short. It's in Appalachia, the mullet. You have to step outside
have you
the city
seen the
limits.
Peanut Butter Solution, that movie where
Where he gets the hair and it grows
gets the
forever.
hair and it grows
I remember being
forever.
a kid and going like, that's the coolest thing ever. He has
Yeah, I
hair down
know.
to his like fucking ankles. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's like that, but with mullets.
Wow.
That
How
was
did we
the
get to the
most-
peanut butter solution in that transition?
I have no idea.
Anyway.
Let's try to work our way back.
But no, okay. So Repo and Devil's Carnival. So after we saw it kind of happening naturally with Repo, we embraced it, and we talked lots about why and how we did it. But basically, going out and giving people a reason to come out has been very exciting and giving them something. And I think you're right when you mentioned giving it to people right to them and like interacting with them and being able to call up Darren, the director, and saying, it's so-and-so's birthday, you should call them. And he's like, that's the Kansas guy, right? Like, yeah, out of the blue, you know, he'll tweet happy birthday to so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty cool because before Twitter, that wasn't normal. Now, if, you know, Kevin Smith is like, oh, so this is a super fan, they're awesome, happy birthday, and they feel like $1 million.
You guys are more like a band. Like you're touring, the merchandise
totally.
is part of it. You're going there to sell, like you're selling a T-shirt, which actually supports the tour, and it makes more sense like that to me.
We all get a lot of calls now. I actually have one I'm supposed to make tonight or tomorrow who is quizzing me on how to do the tours and how, you know, do you four-wall it? Do you do this? Do you do that? And like, it was a 3-hour conversation last week, and he still wants more information on it. And it's kind of normal for us to hear it. But the truth is, the super top secret is we're following the band model. Like literally we're a couple of dudes in a van with a host. It's not, there's just really not a, filmmakers don't want to hear they have to get in a van and drive around the country to make people watch their movie and kind of get behind it. But that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think not that many people are embracing it. How many other people are doing stuff like this?
Mm-hmm. Not now. But I mean, that used to be the norm, like with people like Herschel Gordon Lewis, who would have to tour his prints, you know, to get people to see him and make his money back.
Mike Doherty did it for Trick or Treat. When the studio wouldn't release it, he literally toured the country with the prints.
Coscarelli, I think, still does that. And Bob Murawski does that with all his films.
Oh, that's right.
Like he's still, you know, I'm not his films, but the films from Grindhouse releasing, he still plays them at different college towns or towns. And I love that. I think it's exciting. The idea that a movie's going to come to town for just a couple of days and then it's gone. Mm-hmm. And that's your chance to see it.
Crispin Glover does that still.
Yeah, but he's Crispin Glover. I don't know if that's a huge moneymaker.
I would think it is. I didn't even go to the screening. He was screening one of the What We Do. I don't even know the titles. I'm not even going to try to make it up. But
What is it?
What is it? Thank you. What it is type movies. He was screening one of them in Virginia. And I remember the lines being around the block for that. And then the movie ended at like midnight. And that's when I walked past. And he was signing books and selling his book. Yeah. And he had like a line there till like 2 a.m. because he sat and talked to every single person who bought a book.
Can I tell you, I did this Crispin Glover experience, and it's like the creepiest thing that I've ever agreed to do.
Crispin Glover experience? I didn't know that was a thing.
No, that's what he. So this is what he does. He made this trilogy of movies with only Down syndrome
I remember
actors and him, and they're the weirdest, most incoherent, crazy things. I get it. What he's trying to do is elicit a reaction out of you. He just wants you to see something that makes you uncomfortable or makes you squirm or whatever it is. So what he does is he'll, it was like a 3-part thing. You buy a ticket to go see the movie, but he comes out and reads poetry for about a half hour from his books. But his books are like books that he buys from a store, and then he like writes in his own passages and stuff, like his poetry in them. So like you're all kind of like standing there like, are we supposed to laugh? Are we supposed to applaud? Like, I don't, because I don't want him to freak out and try to karate kick me like he did Letterman. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So you sit there for a half hour and he reads his books. Then he leaves, and then you sit through this 90-minute movie, which just makes your mind meld, and you're like, I don't know what the hell that is. Then he comes out and for another hour, and he's like, any questions? And he does a Q&A, and it's the most hilarious. Like, I hope there's got to be YouTube footage of this. whatever you ask him, what was it like to do Friday the 13th 4 or Back to the Future? He will then respond with like a 15-minute answer that beats around the bush and doesn't actually answer what you just asked him. Huh. He's like, well, the thing about transmental this and that, and I really tried to focus my energies, and you're like, what is he talking about? I don't understand. Huh. And I feel like, and then he'll sit there and be like, I'm selling stuff, I'll meet you. And like, he didn't like take his eyes off me, like to look down at what he was signing. He's like, how did you like the film? How did it make you feel? How do you feel now? And I'm just like, yeah, thank you. So
I want a buddy cop movie with him and Vincent Gallo.
Wow.
I would pay such good money for that movie.
Oh my gosh, I need to write that.
Yeah, that would be. Anyway, we diverted quite a bit.
Yes.
So Dan, I mean, all right, let's talk about your movie. So you made this movie, Sleigh Bells. You directed, you directed a lot of music videos, but even before that, you have a visual effects background and all that. So, when did you make it? Obviously, you and I, we always said we were cheerleaders for other people's films when we were doing the web thing. So when did you decide that you wanted to make that transition to making your own films, or was it even that, or I don't know, like what made you decide to do this?
Here's the thing, and I think this is true for all of us, is at least around this table, is we all want to make movies. We all want to create, and we can't help but to cheerlead, right? Like you see something good, we're going to tell people about it. And for a while, I made it my job to tell people, and you still have that as your job. And you know what I mean? Like you created a fucking community for people, a place for people to go to congregate, like church about horror.
It's all an accident.
But yeah, sure.
But it happened.
You made horror church
I just
happen.
wanted to slink some coffee.
Or a church with coffee. But no, the fact is like we can't get away from this even if we tried, right? Like it doesn't matter if we all go on to make, family movies or sci-fi. We're still going to see Insidious 3, 4, 5, and 6 when they happened. Opening day, except for Rob and I, because we waited until this week to see it a little bit late. But you know what I mean. But the fact is, we can't help it, and I think that naturally we all want to create and tell stories. And for me, that was kind of the way to get into it, was starting with it. I knew as a kid. I think it was a Life Force on Fangoria. I saw it as a really little kid going, what the fuck is that creepy dead thing? And I was hooked. I'd already liked horror, but that was when I knew I wanted to make movies. Just seeing the cover of that Life Force on Fango as a really little kid. And we all just kind of keep going on that journey. And after a while, I was at Bloody for a while. I left to go do essentially, if you want to call it marketing, but community leading in Repo. And then it was like natural, like, let's make some music videos. Let's get a little better at this and try to get things done and create. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is if you're given some time and you need to create, then you should be. It's not for everybody. A lot of people want to consume, and we all like to consume, but like sometimes you just can't help but to create. And so that's why we all do it,
It's either that or you have the LA problem where there's a lot of people who want to, they just want the end result of I'm a filmmaker. And go, oh, cool. And they don't actually want to make a film. They want to be a filmmaker. Or they want to be an actor. They don't actually love the work. They just like the idea of being something. And then there's the people who struggle forever, like moths to a flame, just making stuff and having no money and, trying to run Kickstarters for their car tickets.
I always respected Dan, I always respected your ambition to just make something. Like, I know, Dan's into Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and puppets, and he makes puppets and stuff.
And Return to
That was a great movie.
Which we'll be going to see in a week, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
In the theater.
But at one point you were making like spoof videos. So like there's like still the super popular Twilight video, like reenactments of Twilight.
I'm on Killer POV, so I need to qualify what you just said. So my wife was obsessed with Twilight when it first came out, before the movies.
Blame it on Tim.
And have been equally as embarrassing, obsessed with puppets, and still love them. My living room is littered with puppets to this moment now. So we decided, let's do something fun. We had made Repo with puppets as like a spoof thing. And so we said, let's do Twilight with puppets. And we did a 5-minute movie. Like, it was basically the trailer, but done with puppets. Stephanie Meyer retweeted it on MySpace when MySpace was still happening, which she'd never done since with other, like, there was like 3 fan things that she had gotten behind. And ours was one of them. We made a second one. Nobody watched it, but it was fun making these things. And to me, like, this is where I feel like this, and this is going to sound a little odd on the horror show, but like, I want to see adult puppet stuff. And I don't mean like dirty puppets being like fucking, like Meet the Feebles necessarily.
Let My Puppets Come.
Not Let My Puppets Come, which is, by the way, if you can find it, worth your time.
I own it.
You own it?
I own Let My Puppet Come.
Wow.
You would.
Puppets
I know.
having sex with
I do
real
not
people,
even
the
know
porno.
I have that. I do not even
Shot
know
on
why I
film,
have that
if I'm
movie.
not mistaken.
Yes, it
But
is.
like Dark Crystal's version of that. Like Dark Crystal's very adult.
Like Dark Crystal disturbed me as a kid. Like I was.
So to me, Hellboy 2, if you take Hellboy out of it, all the boring Hellboy stuff, you just have the brother and sister, which is basically the Gelflings.
Yeah.
So to me, Hellboy 2 is like the mini Dark Crystal sequel done in live action. How amazing would that be if that was just their movie? And I brought that up to Guillermo, and he just smiled at me. It was just like,
Dark Crystal used to scare me.
Were you a big fan of the Dozers?
The Doozers.
You mean Fraggle Rock?
Yeah, Fraggle Rock.
I liked it. It was cool.
I've been wanting to bring up Dozers since we started Killer POV. I just always wanted to taste the buildings. I always wanted to
they
bite
always
the
made
building.
those crystal radish structures, and I was like, man, I want to try a crystal.
I always
Because they look like
imagined-
rock candy, but they're radish flavored.
I always imagine they taste like provolone cheese. I don't know why.
No, really?
105 episodes. Fraggle Rock finally comes out. Yes,
It's all downhill from here, kids.
Timely because they're making it into a movie.
No.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, Fraggle Rock, the movie?
Yep.
I'm kind of
Holy
excited
hell.
about the adult Muppet show coming up. Speaking of adult
Oh,
Muppets,
yeah. I mean, you've seen
the
the trailer of the
promo looks
Muppets.
great.
Yeah,
it's definitely
looks
for
cool.
us.
But I think here's the thing. We all have, and we talked about this earlier with the 80s horror movies, we have this amazing nostalgia depending on how old you were when you saw Life Force the first time or when you saw Friday the first time and what you saw it with. And I think, for me at least, seeing, say, Neverending Story or Labyrinth right at the right age where they weren't horror at all, but boy, there were monsters everywhere, and that's what was fascinating.
But the lines were blurred. When we were kids, like someone like Coscarelli, too, constantly blurred, like Beastmaster. It's like, what is that? Is it fantasy? Is it horror? And I think that's why we were so lucky, because the lines were so blurred and there was budgets, so the creatures looked great, and there's puppets and there's animatronics, and, all those things are just pretty much gone, except for those directors who fight to keep it going, which are getting rarer,
Very
So
rare.
I just think we're super lucky that time period. And kids now are lucky because they can watch those old movies. But for the new stuff, there's just...
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. You can't handle your CGI.
We should call that. That's the name of this episode.
Sit up your lawn,
Man, get off my lawn.
No, I'm not going around here. Come on, man.
So obviously you were doing the video stuff and music videos, stuff with puppets and all that. But I mean, I remember distinctly, and this is going back a few years now because there's several other Krampus projects and stuff like that. But you were like, man, I love Christmas horror, and there's not enough Krampus in movies in general. So,
I don't remember when I first heard about Krampus. It was 7-8 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. And then going, wait, there's a monster for Christmas and none of us know about it? We all know the Grinch.
What's the actual lore? Because I only in the last couple of years really seen much about it, but where does that originate? Do you know?
It's like an Alpine folklore where it basically is still celebrated to this day. And the gist of it is this, and I'm not the expert on it. I've done lots of research, of course, but I'm not the expert. Basically, Santa Claus would reward you if you were a good kid and bring you a present. But if you were a bad kid, Krampus would come and scare the shit out of you by beating you with his switch or taking you in his basket to hell and probably fucking your mom on the way out the door.
Oh, shit.
So there was this awesome dude who looks like Bigfoot with the devil head, and we haven't been talking about him for decades. Like, how is it possible that this table didn't already know about this as kids and growing up?
I definitely hadn't heard of it as a kid.
I didn't know about it until this YouTube meme started circling. It was a Krampus parade, I'll call it. And it was really snowy, and all of these people dressed up as Krampus and marched through the town. And it was just these terrifying videos of these amazing costumes, far cooler than anything I'd seen on screen at the time. And I remember just seeing that and being just mesmerized, and then spending the next day researching a Krampus.
What's so even more cool about those is they're all wooden sculptures. The faces are actually carved wood. Yeah.
Wow.
You can buy them. There's places that you can go online and buy them. They're about $2,000.
So there is a part of the world that actually, for real, celebrated this at one point?
On December 5th, to this day in Austria, they've had the Krampus parade. It's Krampus Night, Krampus Nacht. I don't know how to pronounce it, but literally it's never not been in existence. And how we
like a Day of
known
the
about it
Dead
is
or
crazy.
something.
Very much like that. But it's literally like these guys dressing up, scaring little kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
The parade. How awesome is that? And why haven't we seen movies
That's
about
pretty
this
damn
before?
cool that somebody's scaring kids. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, totally. So when we started a little earlier. There's one sort of really low budget Krampus movie out right now, and then we did ours. So ultimately, somewhere during post production on ours, Kevin Smith says, "I'm going to make a Krampus movie," and then the heartbreaking one was Mike Dougherty, who I love and adore everything he's ever done. I have his Christmas cards. He says, "I'm going to make a Krampus movie." It might as well have been Tim Burton going, "I'm going to make Krampus." Yeah. And I was just like, no. Fuck. But honest truth is this. The coolest part about Krampus is it's like Bigfoot or like ghosts or vampires. Like, bring me more. I want to see all of them, especially if it's Mike Dougherty doing it because he's awesome.
And if he knocks it out of the park, it might create a subgenre that your films survive on their own.
Honestly, I really hope, and this is going to sound lofty and silly, but I hope next year when we're at CVS at Christmas, there's a Krampus card that says, like, are you on the naughty list or something that every Hallmark has, or you know what I mean? I think we're not that far off, but it's going to take a few Krampus things to come into pop culture.
Was in Rare Exports, is that like a borderline between the two? Because he's not
Rare
monstrous,
Export, it's very, very implied, but they never use kind of the terms.
Yeah.
But it
has the mood of it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a great film. But
isn't there more than one in that? Like, aren't there multiple?
But remember, he had that big frozen guy, with horns sticking out, and all the Santas were like his minions.
Yeah. Okay, that's
all the naked old.
I'm
Santas.
remembering old dudes. Yeah. Okay, that was it. It was the crazy Krampus, and then okay.
Yeah. Don't spoil it.
But they never said Krampus in Rare Exports. So
but it's a great movie, so be sure to watch it this holiday season.
Yes, you should. But I think what's cool is that with Halloween, we have lots of choices, right? We have a lot of good movies that we want to watch every year, and there's usually a few more to pick from that are like, oh, that's cool, or maybe I haven't seen that. With Christmas, there's about a dozen. And of those dozen, there's not that many great ones.
And they're all pretty nasty. Like the Silent Night movies are pretty nasty. You don't always feel like watching
Christmas
those.
Evil, they're not happy films.
Yeah, you want a fun one. And with yours, it's like, you have Barry, you've got kind of...
Well, here's the honest truth. And I'm happy to say this, although it may bite me in the ass later, but I wanted to make a fun movie that was rewatchable. And maybe I succeeded, maybe I didn't, but my goal was to make a fun movie. And hardcore horror fans are going to be like, this fucking sucks. There's blood in it, but it's not a scary film, and it was never intended to be. I wanted to make something fun and with the monster in it, But if you're expecting Exorcist or Omen or, heavy-duty horror where it's going to get under your skin, even Human Centipede where it just grosses you out, like that's not this movie.
Does your Krampus fuck someone's mom?
Diane Goldner.
I couldn't be more. I just want to see your monster fuck someone's mom, and it's Diane. That's even better. It's
so this is what was funny was we shot the scene, everything was fine, and it's all implied. You don't really see it. But then Diane was like, "I thought I was going to get fucked by Krampus."
For anyone who's listening, that's John
Coger's wife.
John Coger's wife, who's in Feast and a bunch of movies.
She's wonderful.
Biker mom or whatever. And
she's like, I was like, okay, we're going to have to go to pickups and somehow we got to get that scene in there because she was like. Yeah, you missed it. Like, oh, okay.
Because that would be the ultimate nightmare for a kid. Like, if a kid came downstairs and saw that is like something you would never get over. It's just too much.
I want to see that, so that is why I have to contribute to your campaign.
Yes. How much is unfinished? Like, how much do you have to do?
In a perfect world, like right now, we just need like a few days of pickups. And honestly, most of those pickups are kills. Yeah. Like, it's not quite bloody enough for me, and I want it to be a little more in that vein. Like I said, it's not scary. It's more fun and bloody. And
could we be carolers who all come to the door and get killed? And it's like the killer POV death scene.
You know what? That's funny you mentioned that. We had a whole scene with Christmas carols. We were going to hire all of our friends, and they come in and Krampus will kill everybody. Yeah. And the logistics of killing 30 of your friends in a day when you have, I think our shoot was like 17 days. It was just like... Wow, that is a lot of wrangling, and it's
three podcasters are easy to kill.
Easy, three podcasters.
Three podcasters out there.
Iconic podcasters. Iconic.
You should charge us to be in it. If we all pitch in $1,000, we get to die.
Well, on Indiegogo for $3,000, you can get killed in the movie.
Oh, that's pretty good.
There you go.
That's a good
one. That's $9,000. I'm like almost there. Oh shit! I'm glad you guys are rich. The show pays well. Right?
Yeah, we're just raining it. I'm raining money as we talk.
Saturn Awards, so he's all set to go. So,
I wonder if I could sell that. Melt it down.
That Saturn Award, yeah.
I want to hear a little bit of, I mean, you'll be best to ask this stuff because you're around, but I'm very curious about, were you there at the origins of Bloody Disgusting? Because I don't know much about the Wild West of when the first couple companies started. We never got Brad on when he was out here.
Yeah, and I'd love to get him on at some point.
I'm sure we will at some point. But like, were you there in those early days?
So my quick version of that story was Bloody was around for a couple of years before I got there. Brad came to a party at my house. And do you guys remember Seduction Cinema, like Misty Monday and Diane Kane movies?
I remember Misty Monday.
He saw my DVDs, and I have like a row of them. And he's like, "You actually watch that shit?" And I'm like, "I love it." And he's like, "What? Nobody actually watches it." And I'm like, No. It's not even for the tits. It's like it's such weird, bizarre, fun movies." And he's like, "You should write for us if you actually watch these weird movies." And that's how I got started at Bloody. Cool. It was from TNA.
From Misty Monday.
Yeah. From Misty Monday movies, yeah.
Isn't Misty Monday and Mike? She's the star of Mike's show.
Yeah.
And she's really good in it. She's in Lucky McKee's Sick Girl.
Yep. As Erin Brown.
She's good. She just... She has some other spotty material.
Yeah. Lots
I wouldn't call it spotty. I would call it brilliant.
Oh, okay.
So your smutty mind got you into
so the smut collection that I was proudly displaying, Brad was like, oh, come on in. And so I went in and started writing, as most start really poorly. You go back and look at your old articles, you're like, wow, that was really, not even grammar, just like barfing ideas out and not very well executed. But that's where I started. And I was telling Rob earlier today, it was like, I felt it was like the golden age because it was right when Masters of Horror season 1 was happening, just about to come out. And every day there was a new bit of news. Some new director was announced, a new cast member was announced. Yeah. And prior to that, we had Rue Morgan Fango and random things here and there. But all of a sudden there was a reason to go back every day. And that's where I think it started getting really exciting. And I think we got lucky being there at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you could imagine at a time where you were getting, like you'd always go to Fangoria and race right to the teletype to find out whatever. But this is a period where all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, wait, Dario Argento's going to do an episode of this? And wait, who's starring in it? Like that. I remember every day there was a new bit of news about like one of the Masters of Horror episodes. It seemed like a big deal to us at the time, And yeah, that was exciting. I have to ask you, when did I don't even want to call it a persona because it's not, but you've gone by Spooky Dan for the longest time. You've wanted to legally change your name to Spooky Dan.
Only because Facebook took it away, but I got the drag queens helped me get it back. So.
But you've always been Spooky Dan. So when did that name or persona start? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I once found an interview of you way before Bloody Disgusting on YouTube, interviewing like Marilyn Manson or something like that.
All right, so 100 years ago, there's lots of YouTube of this, but like 100 years ago, I have a worse like thick Michigan accent. I sound like I'm in the Fargo movie. It's like so thick. But I did it's like goth talk. It's me interviewing, Marilyn and all the music video people of the day that I could get. Mm-hmm. So there's a little.
Is it called Goth Talk?
No, it wasn't.
Because that really sounds like an SNL spoof. You're here on Goth Talk.
It really was a SNL spoof,
but that was your start of doing, because that's that played into, you became kind of the interviewer and kind of whether you intended or not, the face of Bloody Disgusting. Everyone recognized you at all these events, and I find it interesting that you didn't even realize that you were already starting that interview thing with the music long before.
But I always loved it, and I always loved kind of like anyone else, where you find that thing, it's yours. That's exactly why I think, I'll back up for a second, why Repo is so important. We all can love Star Trek. We all love Star Wars. That doesn't make us special. But if we both agree on this one weird random movie, whether it's Possession or Salsa, you know what I mean? Like
Salsa fucking rocks.
How many people in Los Angeles are talking about Salsa right now, or are excited about it?
Yeah.
So there's like two.
There's two of us.
How many people right now, today, in this moment, are talking about Star Wars? A lot. You know what I mean? So I think that's what you kind of always, you get behind what you like and cheerlead it. And sometimes, at least in my case, I get too obsessed. Mm-hmm. Quit my day job and go on tour with the band, But really, I think that's what we all kind of have to do, is just like follow whatever it is we're super passionate about. And whether it's creating or cheerleading or whatever, and just do it.
Having no backup plan always seems to be the way that works, in the long run. It's hard to make the leap, and people like us struggle all the time and jobs, but it does seem to be the way to go,
It really does, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, after a few months, you go, okay, I tried.
I like to remind people that Orson Welles ended up doing the voice on the Transformers movie and was sleeping on Peter Bogdanovich's couch at the end of his career, but he still did it. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's no regrets. It's still, hey, where you end up, but look what he left behind.
You should have asked him when he was on the couch.
When he was recording the Transformer. What is this show? Also did Care Bears too. So
from another planet.
He was Unicron, right? Yeah.
I remember that.
You guys have done 100 episodes. That goes back a while. Did you have him on?
Orson?
Orson Welles. He was way back in the beginning.
He was like episode 5.
I bet you we did have somebody who probably worked with him in some way. And so, given some of the people,
like Kevin Bacon,
Tom Holland, and all these people, I'm sure somebody's had a crossover.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's a great thing. I mean, that's the one cool thing about LA is all these stories from the crisscross and the characters, how they all create this weird history that's always in flux. Like film history is always still moving. It's not dead. It's just like there's still people around. And I remember meeting on Inside Horror, one of the guests we had who wasn't like anywhere near one of the big guests that anyone would have watched the show for, but it was the writer of Jaws. Mm-hmm. And I just remember going like there's moments where you're like, holy shit, this guy like put pen to paper and fucking create. Without that, there's no Jaws. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a book, but the movie's so different. Yeah. And I don't know, for that idea of a fluid history, it's like that we're all changing and adding to is cool. And these interviews are important. Like, you know, they're not for everyone, but like taking your time to create these interviews, or whether it's a show like what we've been doing, or whether they're the extras on DVDs, it's like that little stuff gets left behind. I'm sure from like the Larry Cohen interview we did on This Week in Horror, which at the time hardly anyone saw, it's going to be on YouTube for like 20 years. And if somebody looks up the stuff, they're going to see Larry talking about that it was actually came from the cigarette addiction, the commercials he saw about cigarette addiction for troops, and it inspired him to make something about that. And you're like, oh, I never knew that. And in that moment, I learned film history. Yeah, and I love that about creating these.
If I recall correctly, that's exactly why you started Icons of Horror, was because there were these other places where you could get the bite-sized news. Here's a quick interview with so-and-so. They're making a movie. You learn a little bit about it, but they weren't going back to the well of people that were inspiring and had legacies. And you guys kind of started at least in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, look, in 2004, like there was no real like horror web presence. I mean, I think Fangoria had a message board. Bloody Disgusting was just starting out. It wasn't like we were all competing to be like, oh, we have to start a horror site. So for me and Mike, when we were doing Icons of Fright, it was like, well, let's do like very lengthy Bravo inside the actor studio kind of interviews. And I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we had Paul Ehlers on a few weeks ago, the guy that played Madman Mars. And, you know, I've been friends with Paul for years now. I hadn't seen him in a while. But once he was on our show, I went back to the Icons interview, which I ended up reposting on our page. And I mean, that's from 2007, from the first day I met and hung out with him. And I was just going to kind of skim it to be like, oh, what did we talk about that day? And I got really engulfed in it. It's a little time capsule. And if anything, I'm super proud of that. It's like some of the work we did on Icons of Fright with interviews, or even some of the interviews that you did for Inside Horror and all the stuff that you were mentioning, they're going to be time capsules. Somebody's going to look it up at some point and want to know that a little bit of that film history, even if it's something like Madman. Like
because moments of it are entertainment. Moments are kind of you have to ask certain questions, or somebody's got that new film. But if you get to those things that get under the curtain, under the hood a little, then you might get that one thing that the person's never discussed somewhere else. I remember Sid Haig had some really outrageous stuff about him running for president, and towards the end it got really funny. I was really interested. I was like,
I liked when he was talking about how he was going to hypnotize us.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's a trained hypnotherapist.
He was like threatening to hypnotize us while he was on the show.
He was trained. His career ended acting. He couldn't book a gig, couldn't get arrested, and he said he went to the school out in the valley where there's a hypnotherapy school and became a trained hypnotherapist. And at one point there, I was talking to his manager at the time, Chris Rowe, and we were meeting at Priscilla's in Burbank, and we were planning a Sid Haig hypnotism show where you would come in with your fear, and by the end of the show you'd be like holding the snake because Sid Haig had just hypnotized you.
I wanted to be called Holding the Snake.
Who wouldn't watch that show? I'd watch it. I was so excited to see him do it.
We should try to get him on to come on here and hypnotize.
I don't know why somebody hasn't written that amazing role for him, like you're the hypnotist character, because his eyes like are popping out of his head.
I want him to cure my fear of centipedes. I'm scared to death of centipedes.
That seems very specific. I don't know how often that affects you.
Do you see lots of centipedes?
No, but when it happens, it's
that aren't made of humans, because that's a normal thing nowadays.
No, I mean, and it's not like I'm not like shaken with fear like on the other side of the room, like I can't even move. It's much more of like a when I see them, with most bugs, my first instinct is to relocate it outside, and I'm not scared of them. But with centipedes, it's like a fucking smash your fucking face in, you bastard. Like I can't. I'm so scared of them. I can't let them live.
You seen potato bugs?
I like potato bugs. They're cute. There's little salad bugs.
Never get her start on bugs.
You mean like the ones that have a face?
Yeah.
Yeah, the potato bugs they have a face.
Wow.
So.
The ones that were in that, the Unholy? What was it? What was the...
Oh, yeah, with the religious, the priest at the start.
Look like.
Oh, shoot, what is it? It was the Jewish one.
Oh, the Possession?
The one before Possession. It was Possession.
The Possession was the...
David Goyer.
The Unborn?
Yeah. No,
Unborn, no?
Unborn.
Yeah. They're also called... I think they're also called Jerusalem bugs, but yeah, they have a face.
Yeah, we're looking at them now. It's like the grossest bug. Centipedes are like cute compared to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and also, I mean, I'll publicly thank Dan. I mean, he's a big part of why I'm here right now. Out in LA and just in general, because he's he's always been a very supportive nice guy. I remember the first time I met you was at like a Fangoria weekend of horrors in like Chicago.
Yeah.
And look, if I'd never heard Dan talk before, I'd never had a conversation with him.
You just thought I was a good looking dude.
If you see him from a distance, you think that he might be like an angry dude from like a death metal band. That's what I assume.
Thank you.
Clearly
That's so
eats
sweet.
babies.
But then I approached you and we started chit chatting, and you were just like such this like enthusiastic and like high energy guy. And I'm just like, he's not scary.
He's excited about eating babies.
He's just spooky. Exactly.
I am just spooky. But no, you were about to make a movie with Paul Sal, a short film. And you were helping out with that. And I knew that like I couldn't pay money to help or anything. But what I could do was, I think I had a guest house at the time that was available, which is not any longer, but it was at the time. And I was like, I can't help you guys on the movie, but I can put you up and your buddy and at least give you guys a place to stay that wasn't on Paul's floor, at least free up a little bit for him. And, you just kind of always, at least that's the one really great thing about our horror community is everyone is really generous like this.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's anyone that is accepted to that our community, like you hear about like comedians, they all know each other, but they're not really buddies. But any of us, it's really not surprising to get a phone call or a text and say, we're all going to see Evil Dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on out. Everyone's here.
I mean, mind you, I didn't know Spooky Dan at all. I just met him in Chicago, and I think I was like, we're coming out to LA in like a week or two, and 2 weeks from now, because our friend Paul's making a short. And the fact that within 2 weeks, you just met me once and just knew like, oh, he's all right. Yeah, you guys can stay at my guest house. Yeah, it was amazing how generous you were then. And again, that started a very long friendship and a lot of trips out here and stuff. So it set me on my path.
Spooky was one of the first people I met in LA too, because one of the first, when I first got out here, I didn't know anybody, but I was shooting stuff for Fango. So I was doing all the red carpets, and I think it was at the Igor Awards.
Yep.
And I was just, like sandwiched, because the Igors, like they shove everybody in these tiny little spaces. Like you literally have like a footprint, and they're like, here's where Fangoria stands. And I was like shoved.
Fangoria and your cameraman and you. And
and it was like me, and I was in between you and Sean Decker.
Yep.
And I remember I talked to you guys like the entire night, and I was like, I love these guys. This is awesome. But that was like one of my first events I did in LA. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah.
Did I help you get here at all, Elric, please?
Yeah, I think so. You probably did. I remember meeting you early at a barbecue. I met Neil Marshall and you. It was before Neil lived here. It was that early. It was at the Garage and Jace's house and through Stacy. And I met, it was so long ago. I think I just had a baby, and he's like 4 now. So it's, 4 years ago. But I just remember you were very representative of all this group of people who are warm and not what they look like. And I think that was something I learned, coming from outside of the scene, but being a horror fan and not looking like a horror fan, just looking like a, I guess, normal person or whatever that means.
You look like you should be mowing a lawn.
I should be
and washing a car.
On a kangaroo. You're mad, you bastard. But that was a really great lesson. And something about LA that was really a quick lesson I learned was that people are so different from how they physically appear here. What they love is what drives them and what connects them, and it's a good lesson.
Yeah.
And this community is so... I mean, there's a couple bad eggs, like always, anywhere, that are not so loving.
Let's highlight them. Let's talk about them. I'm calling you
Let's
out.
talk about them right now.
No, we're going to talk about them after the show.
Can you actually add bleep so it sounds like you actually said something?
I was thinking it, though. I'll tell you that I actually had people in my mind. Just one.
I love everybody.
We'll talk about them after the show.
Maybe, but.
So, I mean, as we kind of wind up and wrap up the show here, what didn't we cover that? I mean,
my Sleigh Bells campaign is going right now through the 26th, I think. So I will remember to keep plugging that. Because, like I said, it sucks having to beg or panhandle. Like, I've had close friends that are like, you're panhandling, like, I'm digitally panhandling. Like, not quite. It's really a full-time job. It's not quite just, like, put a thing out and hope that it works. Like, it's a lot of work. Well, which is why I haven't seen Insidious 3s, because I've been working on this the whole time. But the fact is like, that's what we're doing right now, and we hope that we can get, some horror fans behind it and...
You should do a thing at Gemco, like where you show some of your movie to all the people, like a private thing, and then all those people have to pay you money. Like we watch and we're so inspired by it that we want to give you money.
Yeah, like $5, but we get to see a preview.
Did that, right? Emma did like a reading of Sweethearts,
but that wasn't with anything to like. I didn't think there was any point behind it. Like there wasn't like a thing at the end like to raise money. It's just to.
I thought it was okay.
I thought that they were promoting the Kickstarter.
I mean, they were promoting it, but Kickstarter, Kickstarter is tough.
Kickstarter is and Emma's a good example. She has a lot of friends out there, and a lot of people donated, but it wasn't quite there. And
They asked for a lot. It's a high number, I think, when you're kind of an unknown quantity.
But also, like I said, for you, this is about finishing the movie. I mean, you've already shot most of it. There's a few pickups and things like that. I don't know. I find it a little bit different when it's like, we just. I mean, you tried. We need help crossing the finish line, and that's what it is. So you could see what it is, and if you dig it, then go for it. And like what are some? I saw a lot of the work you put into the incentives and the graphics for all this stuff. So
yeah, you were telling me about a Krampus like carving thing that you were doing.
Oh, so basically for the rewards, I figured, if I'm going to do an Indiegogo, let's deal with it like a pre-sale, as opposed to like, please help me fund my potato salad. I want to give you something that would make sense. And for horror fans, I would love to have Krampus stuff for next Christmas. So if I'm sending my mom, whatever for Christmas, I can wrap it in Krampus paper. So I couldn't afford to make wrapping paper. That was a little out of our budget to make the Indiegogo make sense. But I was like, Krampus gift bags, Krampus Christmas cards, T-shirts. One of the things is like a necklace, it's like a neat necklace of the Krampus head. So like I wanted to make a Krampus-y Christmas stuff start. And so that's what the rewards are. So yeah, give $30, get the movie, or $35, get the movie, and give a lot more. You can get all sorts of weird Krampus stuff.
And $3,000, Krampus comes and fucks your mom.
That could be you.
Mic drop. I really
Why didn't I say that? Damn it! Comedy timing at Elric.
There you go.
Wow, good job.
Well, that's great, man. We're really rooting for you. And
thank you.
Again, just we should definitely have him back on. When we
want to do these doubles. We're playing with these pairings of conversations.
Can I be like the replacement when someone's out of town?
We like that too.
I like that too.
You guys.
Except you'll probably be behind David Scow, who's positioning himself to be
he definitely is
he's kind of surrogate
he's the regular
host.
No, he's only done it once, but I got the feeling that he had his eye.
He was eyeing the seat.
He wants to come back.
How about we just get rid of you three and me and Dave Scow and Dave Parker?
We should do. You know what? One time we should do one episode where we do each one of us replaces with one, and maybe we don't tell you who it will be. And there's just this one episode where three of our friends,
whole new people.
It's the most awkward thing you've ever listened to.
Oh my god, that's really funny. Yeah,
I'd listen to that episode.
Yeah, I think it'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, well, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you
next week.
Happy summer.
Yeah.